By 4:45 p.m., the school was almost empty. Chairs stacked, classroom lights off, corridors echoing with that hollow end-of-day silence. Angela pushed her cleaning cart slowly down the passage, humming to herself as she mopped the last stretch near the junior classrooms. That's when she saw them. Two little girls, sitting on the steps outside the grade 1 block, school bags on their laps, feet swinging, faces too calm. She stopped. Children that age were never this quiet. She glanced toward the gate. Empty. She checked the time. 4:47 p.m. "Hi, babies," she said gently. "Are you waiting for someone?" The girls looked up at the same time. Identical, same eyes, same curls, same solemn expression. "Our daddy is coming," one said politely. "He's just late," the other added. Angela smiled. "Okay, let me just tell the office you're still here, all right?" She went to reception. The receptionist was packing her handbag. "Oh, those two?" the woman said. "Their dad is always on time. He must be stuck in traffic. I'll call him now." Angela nodded and went back to her cart. She finished one classroom, then another. When she came back down the corridor, the girls were still there. Exactly as before. Too patient, too quiet. She frowned and walked back to reception. Empty. The receptionist had gone home. Angela sighed. "Okay," she muttered. "Looks like it's just us." She went back to the girls and crouched down. "Have you had lunch today?" They nodded. "Snack?" They shook their heads. "Right, that won't do." She took them to the staff kitchen, washed their hands, and gave them the biscuits she kept in her bag for long days. They sat on the counter, swinging their legs while she wiped paint off the art room tables. They talked. Well, the girls talked. About their class pet. About how their teacher says okay too much. About how their daddy makes the best pancakes. Angela listened, and something inside her ached at how carefully they spoke, like they had learned not to demand too much from the world. By 6:05 p.m., the sky was turning orange. She was worried now. "Do you know your daddy's number?" she asked. They both shook their heads. "Do you know where you live?" They nodded eagerly. "We know!" They recited the address perfectly. Angela hesitated. She looked at the empty school, then at the twins, then at the darkening sky. "Okay," she said softly. "I'm going to take you home." Adrian Cole had never felt fear like this. Not when the police called about his wife, not in boardrooms, not in hospitals, but standing outside a locked, dark school gate at 6:20 p.m. with no children in sight. His hands were shaking. His driver was at the hospital with a broken wrist. His phone had been smashed in the minor collision. By the time he got a replacement and rushed to the school, everyone was gone. He was about to call the police when his assistant said, "Sir, the security guard says a woman left with 2 children about 20 minutes ago." His blood went cold. "What woman?" "He says she works there. A cleaner." Adrian was already in the car. He had the address memorized. His daughters had practiced it for safety. He drove faster than he ever had in his life. Angela stood outside the large gate, holding one twin's hand while the other leaned against her leg. The house was massive, intimidating, too big. She pressed the intercom. No answer. She tried again, just as she was wondering what to do next. Headlights flooded the driveway. A car screeched to a stop. A man stepped out. Tall, broad, suit jacket half on, eyes wild. He didn't even look at her. "Lena! Lucy!" The girls lit up. "Daddy!" They ran to. He dropped to his knees and pulled them into his arms so tightly, Angela felt her throat close. He buried his face in their hair like he was making sure they were real. Only then did his eyes lift to her, and the warmth disappeared. "Who are you?" he demanded. The tone hit her like a slap. She straightened. "I work at the school. They were still there when everyone left. I told reception, but—" "You took my children," he said coldly. Her chest tightened. "I wasn't going to leave them alone in an empty building." You should have called me. The receptionist said she would, then she left. Your daughters were hungry and it was getting dark. They stared at each other. Anger, fear, misunderstanding, and under all of it, relief. The twins looked between them nervously. Daddy, Miss Angela gave us biscuits, Lucy said softly. And she let us sit on the counter, Lena added. Adrian's jaw clenched. He looked at Angela again. Really looked at her this time. Tired uniform, cleaning gloves sticking out of her apron. Kind eyes. You know our address, he said. They told me. Silence. Then quietly, one of the twins tugged his sleeve. Daddy, she stayed with us. That did it. His shoulders dropped slightly. Not soft, but less sharp. Thank you, he said stiffly. Angela nodded. I should go. She turned to leave. Wait, she paused. He hesitated like the word was unfamiliar. Angela, you said? She nodded. His voice was still guarded, but no longer hostile. Come inside. I owe you more than a thank you. She didn't. She left. The following morning, Angela told herself she had imagined their angelic faces. She told herself she wouldn't notice if she saw them again. She told herself yesterday was an accident of circumstance. Nothing more. By lunchtime the next day, she had almost convinced herself. She was wiping down the sinks in the girls' bathroom near the first-grade classes when she heard soft whispering from one of the stalls. Not giggling, not playing, struggling. She paused. Hold still, one tiny voice said. I am holding still, the other replied, sounding close to tears. Angela stepped around the corner and froze. Avery stood on the closed toilet seat, arms raised awkwardly, trying to gather Ariel's hair into a puff. The hair tie was caught somewhere in the curls, pulling wrong. Ariel's eyes were glossy. Her hair, beautiful, thick, coily, had been brushed out unevenly. One side puffed, the other side flat and frizzy. Angela's chest tightened. She knew that look, the look of little black girls trying to fix hair that adults around them didn't understand. Hey, it's okay, she said softly. Both girls turned, their faces lit up. Miss Angela! She hurried over and gently took the hair tie from Avery's hand. Let me see, baby. She crouched down, fingers moving carefully through Ariel's hair, separating curls instead of fighting them. Did someone try to brush this dry? She asked gently. They nodded. Our teacher tried, Avery said, but she said it's very difficult hair. Angela exhaled slowly. It's not difficult, she murmured. It just needs to be treated properly. She took a little water from the sink, dampened her palms, and worked through the curls with patience. She parted the hair cleanly, smoothed it, twisted it into two neat puffs. Ariel's face relaxed. Avery watched like it was magic. Then Angela turned to her. Come here, let's fix yours too. Within minutes, both girls looked neat, comfortable, and most importantly, confident. They smiled at themselves in the mirror. Angela felt something deep and quiet move in her chest. You see, she said gently, nothing wrong with your hair. It's beautiful. Avery beamed. Daddy says that too. Angela smiled. Your daddy is right. What she didn't know was that Jordan Hayes had arrived early for a surprise lunch visit and had been directed to the bathroom by a teacher who said, I think your daughters are in there with the cleaner. Jordan stepped inside quietly. He didn't announce himself. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there and watched. He watched Angela crouch in front of his daughters like it was the most natural thing in the world. He watched the care in her hands, the patience, the tenderness. He watched his daughters look at her like they trusted her, like they knew her, like they felt safe. And something inside his chest tightened painfully. Because for 3 years, every nanny he hired had treated their hair like a problem. Angela treated it like something precious. Avery spotted him first. Daddy! Angela turned, her eyes widened slightly. She stood up quickly, wiping her damp hands on her apron. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interfere, she said quickly. They were struggling and I just... Thank you, Jordan said. His voice was quiet, different from yesterday. He stepped closer, looking at his daughter's hair. Perfect, neat, loved. Then he looked at Angela. Really looked at her. You did in 5 minutes what no one here has managed to do in 3 years. Angela shifted awkwardly. It's just hair. You just need to know how to handle it. It's not just hair, he said. Their eyes held. And this time there was no anger, only something heavier, something aware. Angela broke the gaze first. I should get back to work. Jordan nodded slowly, but as she walked past him, he said softly, What time do you finish today, Angela? Angela stopped walking, her back still to him. 4, she said without turning, but I have to catch 2 taxis, so I leave immediately. Jordan glanced at his watch. It was 1:12 p.m. He nodded once, more to himself than to her. All right. She walked away before he could say anything else, and Jordan stood there longer than necessary, watching the doorway she had disappeared through. Avery tugged his hand. Daddy? He looked down. Miss Angela smells nice, Ariel said thoughtfully. He blinked. What? She smells like soap and flowers, Avery clarified, and she doesn't pull our hair. Jordan exhaled slowly. Yes, he had noticed that too. At exactly 3:58 p.m., Angela clocked out. She pushed her cart into the storage room, washed her hands, and grabbed her handbag. She was tired, but her mind kept replaying the moment in the bathroom, the way Jordan had looked at her. Not suspicious, not cold, something else. She didn't like it. She stepped out of the school gate and froze. That same black SUV was parked across the street. Her stomach dropped. The driver's door opened. Jordan stepped out. No suit jacket this time, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. He walked toward her with calm, purposeful steps. Angela's first instinct was to pretend she hadn't seen him, but he was already there. I hope you don't mind, he said. I didn't want to miss you. She tightened her grip on her bag. Is something wrong with the girls? No, she exhaled. Then why are you here, Mr. Hayes? Jordan, he corrected. She didn't repeat it. He studied her for a second, noticing how she stood slightly guarded, ready to leave at any moment. I owe you an apology, he said. That surprised her. For yesterday, I was afraid, and I spoke to you like you had done something wrong, when you were the only person who did something right. Angela didn't know what to say to that, so she nodded once. You're welcome, she said softly. Silence stretched between them. Cars passed. Children's voices echoed from down the street. Then he said it. I need your help. Her eyes lifted to his immediately, and there it was again, that instinct to protect herself. I already told you I'm not a nanny. I know. Then what do you need? He hesitated, and for the first time since she had met him, Jordan Hayes looked unsure. My daughters haven't laughed like that in a long time, he said quietly. They haven't let anyone touch their hair since their mother passed. Angela's chest tightened. I'm not trying to replace anyone, she said quickly. I don't want you to, he replied just as fast. Their eyes met, honest, direct. I just want them to feel cared for, the way they did with you, naturally, without trying. She swallowed. That's not something you hire, she said gently. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. A taxi slowed down near them. Angela glanced at it, then back at him. He saw the hesitation. Please, he added, softer now. Just come for dinner tonight. Meet them outside of school. No pressure, no job offer. If you still want nothing to do with us after that, I'll never bother you again. She studied him. This powerful man, this grieving father, this stranger who somehow felt less intimidating today. Her taxi hooted. She looked at it, then at him, then back at the taxi, and made a decision she didn't understand herself. Dinner, she said. That's all. Relief flashed across his face so quickly it almost looked like pain. I'll pick you up at 6, he said. She shook her head. No, I'll come myself. He nodded. 6 then. As she walked toward the taxi, Jordan watched her go with a feeling he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. At 5:42 p.m., Angela stood outside the Hayes residence, staring at the gate. She had almost turned back twice. This was a mistake. She didn't belong in places like this. She cleaned places like this. She pressed the intercom before she could change her mind. The gate opened immediately. He had been waiting. Inside, the house was exactly what she expected. Huge, immaculate, quiet. Too quiet for a home with children. Jordan opened the door before she could knock. He had changed. Dark jeans, a fitted black sweater, barefoot, less CEO, more man. Hi, he said. She nodded. Evening. Before the awkwardness could grow, 2 small bodies crashed into her legs. Miss Angela! She laughed in surprise as Avery and Ariel wrapped their arms around her. Jordan froze. His daughters did not run to people. They barely tolerated most adults. And here they were, clinging to her like she belonged. Angela crouched to hug them properly. Hey, beautiful girls, did you behave today? They nodded eagerly, already pulling her toward the living room. Jordan stepped aside silently, watching, studying, memorizing. Dinner was simple, not fancy. Chicken, rice, vegetables. Angela noticed immediately. He was trying not to intimidate her. The girls talked nonstop, mostly to her. Jordan listened. And every now and then his eyes would lift to Angela in quiet observation. The way she reminded them to chew properly. The way she wiped Ariel's mouth without making it a big deal. The way she asked them questions like she genuinely wanted to hear the answers. No performance, no effort, just natural. After dinner, the girls dragged her to the couch. Story time, Avery announced. Angela laughed. I don't know your stories. We'll show you. Jordan stood in the doorway, watching as Angela sat between them, a book in her hands, the girls pressed into her sides like puzzle pieces. She read with different voices, made them giggle, made them interrupt, made them feel like children. By the time the story ended, both girls were half asleep against her. Angela looked up at Jordan softly. I should go. He nodded, stepping forward to lift Ariel gently into his arms. Angela carried Avery. They walked to the girls' bedroom together in silence. A strange, intimate silence, like this was something they had done before, like this was familiar. Angela tucked Avery in gently, brushing curls from her forehead. Good night, baby. Avery grabbed her hand sleepily. Don't go. Angela's heart squeezed painfully. I'll see you at school tomorrow, she whispered. Jordan stood in the doorway, watching that moment like it was something fragile, something sacred. At the front door, Angela picked up her bag. Thank you for dinner, she said politely. Jordan shook his head. No, thank you for tonight. She hesitated. This can't become a habit, she said softly. He nodded slowly. I know. But neither of them believed it. She stepped outside. He walked her to the gate. The night air was cool, quiet. You were right, he said. About what? That care like yours can't be hired. She looked at him. And yet you're going to try. Yes. Her lips twitched slightly, and for the first time, Jordan saw her almost smile. Good night, Mr. Hayes. Jordan. She didn't correct herself, but she didn't argue either. As she walked away, Jordan stood there long after she disappeared down the street. Because for the first time since his wife died, his house had felt like a home again, and it terrified him how much that feeling was attached to Angela Brooks. The next morning, Jordan woke before his alarm. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening, waiting. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Last night had felt different. Warm. Alive. This morning felt like the return of something cold he had learned to live with. He got the girls ready for school himself, as always, but today they moved with a kind of excitement he hadn't seen in a long time. Daddy, Do you think Miss Angela will be in the bathroom again? Avery asked while he helped her with her shoes. Maybe, he said carefully. Ariel tilted her head. Can we ask her to do our hair every day? Jordan paused, and that was the moment he stopped pretending. Yes, he said quietly. You can. He didn't go to the office. Instead, he sat in his car across from the school gate at 3:30 p.m., watching parents collect their children. He felt ridiculous, a billionaire CEO waiting like a nervous teenager. But he needed to do this properly. No pressure, no intimidation, just honesty. At 3:55 p.m., Angela stepped out of the gate with her bag on her shoulder. She spotted him immediately. Her expression said, "You again?" Jordan stepped out of the car before she could escape. Relax, he said gently. I'm not kidnapping you. She sighed. You really don't give up, do you? No. She crossed her arms. What now? He took a breath. I'd like to offer you a job. She closed her eyes briefly. I told you. Not as a nanny, he interrupted. That made her pause. He continued carefully. As someone my daughters already trust. Someone who understands them in ways I can't always manage alone. She shook her head. That still sounds like a nanny, Mr. Hayes. Jordan. She ignored it. I'm a cleaner. I don't have qualifications for this. I don't care about qualifications. She blinked. You should. I care about how my daughters look at you. That silenced her. Jordan stepped a little closer but kept a respectful distance. They don't let people touch them, he said quietly. They didn't even let the last nanny do their hair after their mom died. Yesterday, they sat still for you like it was the most natural thing in the world. Angela's throat tightened. That's not something you teach, he added. That's something you are. She looked away, because his words were doing something dangerous inside her. I don't live anywhere near here, she said weakly. I have a guest suite. Her head snapped back to him. Absolutely not. He nodded quickly. All right, then I'll arrange transport. Whatever you need. She stared at him. You really want me to leave my job? Yes. You don't even know me. I know enough. Silence stretched. Cars passed. Children laughed somewhere down the road. Angela felt cornered by something she couldn't name. I need time, she said finally. Jordan nodded immediately. Take it. She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, I'm not replacing their mother. His voice dropped. I would never ask you to. And for the first time, Angela believed him. She walked away without promising anything. But Jordan watched her go with a quiet certainty. She was already halfway into their lives. She just didn't know it yet. Friday had started like any other day for Angela Brooks. Quiet, predictable, safe. She had just finished mopping the corridor near the art room when the bell rang for break. Children burst out of classrooms like released birds, laughter filling the hallway. Angela moved her cart to the side and stepped into the storage room to put away the extra detergent. She was gone less than a minute. The scream came sharp and sudden. A child crying, teachers shouting, feet running. Angela rushed back out. A little boy was on the floor, clutching his arm, tears streaming down his face. A teacher knelt beside him, panicked. What happened? Angela asked breathlessly. He slipped, the teacher snapped. The floor is wet. Angela stared. The floor wasn't wet. She had finished mopping 10 minutes ago. It had dried. She had even walked across it herself, but the yellow caution sign had been moved, and the boy's shoe had water on it. From where? She didn't know. Within minutes, the boy's mother arrived, and chaos followed. You people are careless, the woman shouted. My son's arm is broken because of this. Who cleaned this floor? All fingers pointed at Angela. She tried to explain. I had finished. It was dry. I stepped away for a moment. I don't want excuses, the woman yelled. Either you fire her or I sue this school. Angela's chest felt tight, small. She looked at the principal, hoping for someone to defend her. But all she saw was calculation. Fear of lawsuits, fear of bad publicity, fear of losing money. Not one person asked her what really happened. After a short, whispered meeting in the office, the principal came out with a stiff expression. "Angela, we're very sorry, but we have to let you go." Just like that. Years of work. Gone to protect the school. She nodded slowly. She didn't argue. Because she could see it in their eyes. The decision had already been made before she opened her mouth. She packed her things in silence, walked out of the gate, and for the first time in a long time, Angela Brooks felt lost. Jordan Hayes knew something was wrong the moment he arrived for pickup. Angela was always somewhere nearby. Today, she wasn't. Avery and Ariel ran to him. "Daddy, Miss Angela cried today," Avery said softly. His heart dropped. "What do you mean?" "She was packing her bag," Ariel added. "The teachers were shouting." Jordan's jaw tightened. He walked straight to reception. "What happened to Angela Brooks?" The receptionist hesitated. She's no longer working here, sir." "Why?" "A parent threatened to sue. Something about a wet floor. The school had to protect itself." Jordan went very still. "Was it her fault?" A pause. "No," the woman admitted quietly, "but the parent was very angry." That was all he needed to hear. Angela was halfway to the taxi rank when a car pulled up beside her. She didn't even need to look. She knew. "Get in," Jordan said gently. She shook her head. "I'm fine." "You were fired." Her steps faltered. "How do you—" "The girls told me." The receptionist confirmed it. She swallowed hard. "It's okay," she said, but her voice trembled. "These things happen." "No," he said firmly. "They don't just happen." She finally looked at him, and he saw it. The hurt she was trying so hard to hide. "Angela," he said softly, "this is not the end of something. This is the beginning." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm offering you the job again." She sighed tiredly. "Jordan, please, not today." "Yes, today." She stared at him. He stepped out of the car, stood in front of her on the pavement. "I will triple whatever the school was paying you," he said calmly. "Transport, benefits, whatever you need." Her eyes widened. "That's ridiculous." "No," he said quietly. "What's ridiculous is that you lost your job over something you didn't do." She shook her head. "You can't just fix everything with money." "I'm not trying to fix everything," he said. "I'm trying to make sure you don't walk away from us because of someone else's mistake." The words hung between them. "Us." Angela's heart skipped. "I don't want pity," she whispered. "This isn't pity," he replied. "This is me needing you in my daughter's lives." She searched his face. There was no arrogance, no CEO tone, just a father, tired, honest, hopeful. "I don't know how to be what you want," she said softly. Jordan's voice dropped. "You already are." "Go home, Mr. Hayes." Angela's voice was tired, fragile in a way she hated. "The girls are exhausted. You can see them sleeping in the back seat. I'm not in the right state of mind to make any decisions right now. I don't want regrets." Jordan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right." He reached into his pocket and handed her a card. "Please call me if you need anything." She took it without looking at it. He got back into the car and drove away, his daughters still asleep in the back. Angela stood on the pavement long after the car disappeared. She didn't know why her chest felt so heavy. The dripping woke her at 5:12 a.m. At first, she thought she was dreaming. Then she heard it again. Drip, drip, drip. She sat up in bed and saw it. Thin lines of water running down the wall opposite her bed. Her stomach dropped. "Oh, no. No, no, no." She jumped up, touching the wall. Wet, cold, the paint already bubbling. Within minutes, the water started coming faster, not dripping, flowing. She called the building manager in a panic. He arrived quickly with 2 maintenance men, but the moment they opened the wall panel near the bathroom, water burst out. "The apartment above yours flooded during the night," he explained urgently. "But the pipes run through the walls, so it's coming down here too." Angela watched helplessly as water streaked down her walls, soaking into everything. "You have to vacate," he said. "We need to break this wall to fix the pipe. Today." Her head spun. "Today?" "Yes, immediately." She moved on instinct, packed a small suitcase with her clothes and valuables. The rest of her things were rushed into storage before the water could destroy them. By the time she stepped outside with her bag, her hands were shaking. She had nowhere to go. She couldn't afford a hotel. Most of her money went to her mother's care home. She had just lost her job. Her chest felt tight. She flagged down a taxi without thinking. "Where to?" the driver asked, and before she could stop herself, she gave the address. She only realized what she had done when the taxi stopped in front of Jordan Hayes's gate. Her heart began to race. Oh my God! She reached into her bag and saw his card. Right. She had forgotten to call him in the chaos. She dialed the number. He answered quickly. "Angela, I'm outside your gate," she said. A pause. I need to talk to you." "I'm in the shower," he said. "Come inside. The girls will let you in." Her stomach flipped. She looked at her suitcase, then at the gate. She had no choice. The door opened before she could knock. The girls were in the living room. The moment they saw her, "Miss Angela!" They ran to her, nearly knocking her over. She dropped her bag to hug them, laughing despite everything. Jordan came down the hallway quickly, hair still damp, sleeves pushed up. He stopped when he saw the suitcase. His expression changed instantly. "What happened?" Angela swallowed. And for the first time since all this began, her composure cracked. "My apartment flooded," she said softly. "They have to break the walls. I have nowhere to go." Jordan didn't hesitate, not even for a second. "You're staying here," she nodded. "Thank you." The words surprised even her. The girls gasped excitedly. Jordan stepped closer. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. She looked at the twins clinging to her, then at the man who had offered her help without pride, without pressure. "I accept the job," she said quietly, and for the first time since his wife died, Jordan Hayes smiled. Angela had never owned a suitcase that looked this small. Standing in the middle of Jordan Hayes's guest suite, she felt like she had stepped into a hotel she could never afford. Except this time, it wasn't temporary. Or maybe it was. She didn't know yet. The room was warm, neutral colors, a large bed, a private bathroom, a window that overlooked a garden so quiet it didn't feel real. She placed her suitcase at the foot of the bed and just stood there. This was not how she imagined accepting a job. Homeless, tired, emotionally overwhelmed. A soft knock came at the door. She turned. Jordan stood there, hands in his pockets. "I hope it's okay," he said. "If you need anything changed, we can—" She shook her head quickly. "It's perfect. Thank you." There was an awkward pause. Then he said, "The girls are arguing over who gets to show you their room first." That made her smile. "Let me guess," she said. "Avery thinks she should go first because she's older by 2 minutes?" His brow lifted. "How did you know that?" "She told me. Twice." A corner of his mouth lifted slightly, and for a second, the heaviness between them eased. The girls didn't leave her alone for the rest of the afternoon. They showed her their toys, their drawings, their favorite hiding spots. Angela noticed something important. They kept checking to make sure she was still there, still in the room, still close, as if she might disappear if they looked away too long. That broke her heart quietly. That night, after dinner, she helped them with their baths. Jordan watched from the doorway again. He was starting to realize something. Angela didn't step into their lives loudly. She blended in, like she had always been part of their routine, like the space for her had been waiting. After the girls were in bed, Angela walked down the hallway slowly. Jordan was in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. They met there, alone. for the first time since she arrived with her suitcase.
"You didn't have to say yes today,"
he said quietly. "I know. Then why did you?" She hesitated. "I think I needed somewhere to belong today," she admitted softly. His chest tightened at her words.
"You belong here,"
he said before he could stop himself. Silence followed, thick, aware. Angela looked away first. "This is still temporary," she said gently, "until my place is fixed." Jordan nodded, but something in his eyes said he didn't believe that at all. "Good night, Angela." "Good night, Jordan." It was the first time she said his name, and he felt it. Sunday morning came slowly at the Hayes household. Sunlight spilled across the guest suite where Angela had slept, and for the first time in days, she woke without a ringing alarm or the stress of a leaking apartment. Instead, she was greeted by the faint sound of giggles from down the hall. She slipped out of bed quietly, pulling on a comfortable sweater and jeans, and made her way to the living room. Avery and Ariel were sprawled on the couch in matching pajamas, holding a pair of stuffed animals like shields, their little faces bright with excitement. "Good morning, Miss Angela," Avery called. "Good morning," Angela said, smiling. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, and we missed you," Ariel added, bouncing slightly on the couch cushion. Angela's heart swelled. There was a purity in their excitement that made her feel wanted, needed. Jordan stepped out of the kitchen doorway, a mug of coffee in his hand. He had changed into casual clothes, jeans, and a soft sweater. His presence was calm, steady, almost comforting in a way that made Angela aware of him without even looking directly at him. "Good morning," he said softly. "Morning," Angela replied, glancing at him and then at the girls. Breakfast was simple: pancakes, fruit, and orange juice. The girls chattered about their plans for the day, excitedly listing things they wanted to do with her. Jordan listened from his seat at the end of the table, occasionally smiling at something they said or offering a small comment. After breakfast, the three of them moved to the playroom. Jordan had insisted it was Angela's domain today. No work talk, no schedules. Just a Sunday to enjoy each other's company. Angela joined them on the floor. They built towers with blocks, painted with watercolors, and laughed when a tower toppled over. She discovered little things about them. Avery loved to name every single block in the tower, while Ariel preferred to focus on the colors and patterns. "You're good at this," Avery said, her curls bouncing as she leaned closer. Angela smiled. "I've had practice. Some kids just need patience and a little imagination." The girls giggled. Jordan watched quietly, noting how naturally she moved among them. How she knew when to speak softly, when to step back, when to guide. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rehearsed. It was instinctive. By mid-afternoon, they had settled into a quiet reading session on the living room rug. Angela read aloud from a storybook the girls had chosen. The twins' heads rested against her arms, completely absorbed. Jordan, seated nearby with a tablet, pretended to be busy but occasionally peeked over the screen to watch. There was a rhythm forming, soft, gentle, and comforting. Angela laughing when a character did something silly, the girls correcting her pronunciation, Jordan sipping coffee and smiling quietly. When the clock struck 4, Angela stood. "I need to show you a few house rules before tomorrow," she said. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "House rules?" "Yes," she replied with a grin. "Even in a big house like this, you need to know boundaries. For the girls' sake, for yours, and for mine." The rules were simple. Breakfast and meals together whenever possible. Bedtime routines followed carefully. Playroom cleaned up after use. Respect for personal spaces, including Angela's guest suite. Everyone pitches in with small tasks, even if just folding laundry or putting toys away. The girls nodded eagerly, excited to learn and follow the rules of Miss Angela. Jordan listened, attentive, but with a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Afterward, they played a quiet game of cards. Jordan joined in reluctantly at first, but soon the girls had him laughing and teasing Angela with playful jabs. She couldn't help but laugh along. By the time evening came, the three of them sat together on the couch. Jordan poured wine for himself, Angela sipped tea, and the girls cuddled into her sides, sleepy and content. It was peaceful, warm, familiar. Angela leaned back, feeling a rare sense of calm. This was not a house full of strangers. It wasn't temporary chaos. It felt like the beginning of something that could last. Jordan's hand brushed lightly against hers as he reached for the blanket draped over the couch. He didn't comment. He didn't apologize. He simply let the contact linger, just long enough for both of them to feel it. The girls yawned in unison. "Time for bed," Angela said softly. "Do we have to?" Ariel whined, hugging her stuffed giraffe. "Yes," Angela replied gently, "but we can read a story first." Jordan watched her tuck the girls into their room. He paused at the doorway, silent, before retreating to the living room. Alone with her, he finally allowed himself to think it aloud. She's exactly what they needed. And maybe exactly what I needed too. Angela closed her eyes, leaning back on the couch. She didn't speak, didn't move, but somewhere deep inside, she knew her life had changed. And the girls, and Jordan, were the reason. Monday morning arrived quietly at the Hayes residence. Angela moved through the house with practiced ease, but today she wasn't alone in meeting the rhythms of this new household. She had been introduced to the other staff. Ms. Lillian, the cleaning lady, cheerful and precise, who came every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She greeted Angela warmly, sharing tips about the house and the girls' habits. Mr. Benson, the maintenance man, who stopped by sporadically to check things out. He nodded politely at Angela, clearly approving of her presence in the household. Angela smiled politely at both, making mental notes about how the household operated and how her role fit into it. By 6:30 a.m., she was in the twins' room, waking them gently. "Good morning, Avery. Good morning, Ariel," she said softly. The girls stretched, blinking sleep from their eyes, then immediately began asking her about breakfast. Angela laughed softly and helped them get dressed, combed, and fed, all in a natural flow that seemed effortless. By 7:15 a.m., breakfast was finished, teeth brushed, hair in perfect puffs. Jordan appeared in the doorway, briefcase in hand, looking slightly amused. "Girls ready?" he asked. "Yes, Daddy," they chimed in unison, bouncing with energy. Jordan leaned down, planting a kiss on each head. "Have a great day at school." Sometimes he drove them himself, sometimes the driver took them. Angela supervised quietly, making sure everything ran smoothly. The first week unfolded almost seamlessly. After school, the girls returned via the driver. Angela was waiting with snacks and lunches she had prepared just before their arrival. Homework time became their favorite part of the day. Angela guided them patiently, showing them methods that kept the twins engaged. Avery loved reading aloud with her. Ariel preferred puzzles and drawing exercises. Angela adapted to their personalities naturally, never forcing, never raising her voice. Dinner was at 7 p.m. sharp, simple and nourishing, with the girls chatting nonstop. Angela made sure the twins were ready for bed by 8 p.m. Baths, teeth brushed, stories read, lights out. Jordan observed it all silently at first. He didn't understand it. The way Angela moved through the household, the way she handled the girls. Other nannies had been competent, strict, or even loving, but none had connected the way Angela did. He had hired women with experience, women with references, women trained in child psychology. And yet it took Angela, someone who had never formally been their nanny, less than a week to win the girls' trust completely. It wasn't just patience. It wasn't just skill. It was instinct. It was care. And as he watched Angela help Ariel with a tricky homework question, his chest tightened slightly. No one had ever made this household feel easy or full or alive. And yet here she was. The week ended with the girls asleep and Jordan standing quietly at the doorway of the guest suite. Angela was folding laundry, humming softly, a small smile on her face. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just watched and silently acknowledged that for the first time since his wife had passed, someone had finally found a way into their home and into his heart. Monday morning arrived quietly at the Hayes residence. Angela moved through the house with practiced ease, but today she wasn't alone in meeting the rhythms of this new household. She had been introduced to the other staff. Ms. Lillian, the cleaning lady, cheerful and precise, who came every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. She greeted Angela warmly, sharing tips about the house and the girls' habits. Mr. Benson, the maintenance man, who stopped by sporadically to check things out. He nodded politely at Angela, clearly approving of her presence in the household. Angela smiled politely at both, making mental notes about how the household operated and how her role fit into it. By 6:30 a.m., she was in the twins' room, waking them gently. "Good morning, Avery. Good morning, Ariel," she said softly. The girls stretched, blinking sleep from their eyes, then immediately began asking her about breakfast. Angela laughed softly and helped them get dressed, combed, and fed, all in a natural flow that seemed effortless. By 7:15 a.m., breakfast was finished, teeth brushed, hair in perfect puffs. Jordan appeared in the doorway, briefcase in hand, looking slightly amused. "Girls ready?" he asked. "Yes, Daddy," they chimed in unison, bouncing with energy. Jordan leaned down, planting a kiss on each head. "Have a great day at school." Sometimes he drove them himself, sometimes the driver took them. Angela supervised quietly, making sure everything ran smoothly. The first week unfolded almost seamlessly. After school, the girls returned via the driver. Angela was waiting with snacks and lunches she had prepared just before their arrival. Homework time became their favorite part of the day. Angela guided them patiently, showing them methods that kept the twins engaged. Avery loved reading aloud with her. Ariel preferred puzzles and drawing exercises. Angela adapted to their personalities naturally, never forcing, never raising her voice. Dinner was at 7 p.m. sharp, simple and nourishing, with the girls chatting nonstop. Angela made sure the twins were ready for bed by 8 p.m. Baths, teeth brushed, stories read, lights out. Jordan observed it all silently at first. He didn't understand it. The way Angela moved through the household, the way she handled the girls. Other nannies had been competent, strict, or even loving, but none had connected the way Angela did. He had hired women with experience, women with references, women trained in child psychology. And yet, it took Angela, someone who had never formally been their nanny, less than a week to win the girls' trust completely. It wasn't just patience. It wasn't just skill. It was instinct. It was care. And as he watched Angela help Ariel with a tricky homework question, his chest tightened slightly. No one had ever made this household feel easy, or full, or alive. And yet, here she was. The week ended with the girls asleep, and Jordan standing quietly at the doorway of the guest suite. Angela was folding laundry, humming softly, a small smile on her face. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just watched. And silently acknowledged that for the first time since his wife had passed, someone had finally found a way into their home and into his heart. It was Thursday evening. The house was calm, almost eerily so. The girls were tucked into bed by 8 p.m., softly snoring, their little heads resting on pillows that smelled faintly of lavender soap. Angela moved through the kitchen, washing the last of the dinner dishes. The hum of the dishwasher and the faint ticking of the wall clock were the only sounds. Jordan appeared in the doorway quietly, holding a glass of wine. "Miss Angela," he said softly, leaning casually against the frame. Angela glanced up, startled for just a moment. "Jordan, you scared me." "I apologize," he said, raising a hand slightly.
Wanted to check on you. Make sure you're settling in okay.
She smiled faintly, drying her hands on a towel. I am, really. It's all falling into place. He walked closer, careful, deliberate.
I can see that. The girls are thriving. And it's all thanks to you.
Angela felt her cheeks warm. I'm just doing what seems right. Jordan tilted his head, studying her in the soft kitchen light. She looked different than she had that first day, more relaxed, natural, confident. The gentle curve of her shoulders, the way her hair fell slightly loose around her face, the soft hum of her presence. He cleared his throat.
It's remarkable how easily you connect with them.
Angela glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. You make it sound like I have some secret power.
You might,
he said softly, almost to himself. She blinked at him, unsure if she had heard correctly. Jordan's gaze dropped for a moment, then lifted, meeting hers squarely. I've had nannies, several. Competent, kind, experienced. None of them ever made the house feel like home, like alive. And the girls, they respond to you naturally, without hesitation. It's unusual. Angela felt a flutter in her chest, and she busied herself with wiping down the counter. Maybe they just like me, she murmured, brushing her hair behind her ear. He moved a step closer.
It's more than that.
The quiet between them was thick, charged, the kind of tension that made the air hum. Angela looked up. He was closer than before. His presence filled the kitchen. She noticed the slight crease at the corner of his eyes, the way his jawline caught the light, the faint scent of his cologne. Clean, masculine, understated. Jordan, she said softly, trying to keep the tone casual. We have to keep things professional. He smiled faintly.
I know.
But his eyes didn't lie. Angela swallowed, feeling the strange electric pull between them. She turned back to the dishes, pretending to be absorbed, but she could feel him watching her. A soft creak of the floor made them both flinch slightly. Jordan cleared his throat again.
You should rest, he said quietly. It's been a long week.
Angela nodded. Yes, I think I will. He lingered a moment longer, his hand brushing lightly over the edge of the counter near hers. Neither moved, neither spoke. Then, with a quiet sigh, he stepped back.
Good night, Angela.
Good night, Jordan, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. After he left, Angela leaned against the counter, heart pounding. What is happening to me? She wondered. Across the house, Jordan stood in the hallway, staring at the doorway she had just disappeared through. She's dangerous, he thought grimly. Not because she's reckless or foolish, but because she's inevitable. And for the first time in 3 years, Jordan Hayes found himself looking forward to something other than work and his daughters. Something he couldn't control. Something about Angela. Saturday morning, the sun was bright and cheerful, and the Hayes household was alive with excitement. Miss Angela, are we really going to the zoo? Avery asked, practically bouncing off the walls. Yes, and we're having a picnic too, Ariel added, tugging at Angela's sleeve. Angela laughed, gathering picnic baskets, snacks, and juice boxes. Yes, we are, but you both have to promise to stay close and listen to me. The girls nodded enthusiastically. Jordan emerged from the hallway wearing casual clothes and sunglasses, a backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked relaxed, something he rarely allowed himself to feel in the house. Ready, girls? He asked. Yes, they shouted in unison. Angela held the picnic baskets while Jordan handled the girls' little backpacks and a bag with drinks. The drive to the zoo was filled with chatter and giggles, and for once, Jordan didn't mind being stuck in traffic. He enjoyed listening to them. At the zoo, Angela guided the girls through the exhibits, pointing out animals and encouraging them to ask questions. Look, that's a giraffe, she said, smiling as Avery pressed her tiny hand against the glass. They're so tall, Ariel exclaimed. Jordan watched, quietly impressed by how naturally Angela engaged with the girls. She didn't just entertain them, she made learning fun. The twins hung on her every word, laughing at her playful animal noises and mimicking her exaggerated movements. When a small crowd formed near the lion exhibit, Angela pulled the girls back gently. "Stay close, but don't worry. I've got you." Jordan felt a tug in his chest. She makes it all seem so easy. Why did I ever think anyone else could do this? By noon, they found a quiet patch of grass for the picnic. Angela unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and juice, carefully laying out a blanket. The girls dug in immediately, giggling as they fed each other grapes and traded pieces of sandwiches. Jordan sat back, watching Angela. The way she laughed at their antics, wiped a bit of jam off Ariel's chin, and offered Avery a napkin with a playful smile. It all made her glow in the sunlight. She noticed him watching and caught his eye. He gave a small, fleeting smile, and her heart skipped. She looked away, pretending to focus on Ariel tying her shoelaces. After lunch, they wandered a bit more, stopping to see monkeys, penguins, and the elephants. Angela held the girls' hands, guiding them gently. Jordan stayed close, slipping his hand around hers for a brief second as they passed through a crowded path. Too late, he thought, even as his pulse raced. I'm already feeling it. The day ended at a small pizza place. The girls picked their favorite toppings while Angela and Jordan shared a large pepperoni pie. "See?" Angela said, handing Avery a slice. "Nothing beats pizza after a day of running around." Jordan laughed quietly. "You seem to have all the solutions." Angela smirked. "I just pay attention." He studied her across the table, noting the warmth in her smile, the spark in her eyes, the ease with which the girls gravitated toward her. It was maddening and irresistible. By the time they returned home, the girls were asleep almost immediately, their little bodies curled up in bed. Angela collapsed on the couch, exhausted but happy. Jordan joined her, leaning back in the armchair opposite her. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "For today. For them. For making all this feel easy." Angela smiled faintly. "I'm just happy to see them happy." Jordan leaned back, eyes lingering on her as if memorizing every detail. "I don't know how you do it," he murmured. "I don't know how anyone else could have managed them the way you do." Angela felt a shiver run through her. She met his gaze. For a long, silent moment, neither spoke. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside, something had shifted, and both of them knew, quietly, undeniably, that life had just become a little more complicated. A month changed things in quiet ways. Angela noticed them before she understood them. The way Jordan lingered in doorways when she was talking to the girls. The way his voice softened when he said her name. The way he watched her like she was something fragile and powerful at the same time. He never crossed a line, but the air between them had become aware. That Saturday morning started like any other. Pancakes, laughter, the girls arguing over syrup, Angela wiping sticky fingers and pretending to scold them. Jordan sat at the table, unusually quiet, watching her. "Angela," he said casually, as if the thought had just occurred to him. "Do you have a driver's license?" She looked up. "Yes. Why?" He nodded once. "Good." That was all he said. Around noon, he stood from the couch. "Girls, get ready. We're going out." "Where are we going?" Ariel asked. "It's a surprise," he replied. Angela assumed it was another family outing. Maybe lunch, maybe a park. She had no idea. They pulled into a car dealership. Angela frowned. "Jordan? Come," he said simply. The girls were already out of the car, excited by the shiny vehicles lined up in rows. Angela followed him inside, confused. "Why are we here?" He spoke to a salesman briefly who smiled and nodded, then gestured toward a sleek, beautiful family SUV parked near the showroom window.
Angela slowed. "Jordan." "This one," he said calmly. She looked at him. "For who?" He looked at her like the answer was obvious. "For you." Her heart stopped. "What? No, no, Jordan, absolutely not." He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply spoke gently. "You can't rely on taxis anymore, Angela. Not with the girls, not for groceries, not for emergencies, and I need the driver more at the office lately." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "That doesn't mean you buy me a car." "It does," he said quietly, "because you're part of this household now, and this makes sense for all of us." The girls ran over. "Miss Angela, this is your car?" Avery squealed. "You're going to take us to school?" Ariel added, bouncing. Angela looked from the girls to Jordan, feeling cornered by kindness she didn't know how to refuse. "I can't accept this," she whispered. Jordan stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "This is not a gift," he said gently. "It's a necessity. For the job, for the girls, for you." His eyes held hers. "Please don't make this hard." And somehow, the way he said it made her chest tighten. Because this wasn't about money. This was about care, about thoughtfulness, about him seeing her. An hour later, she was sitting in the driver's seat, hands trembling on the steering wheel as the salesman explained the features. The girls were in the back, arguing over who would sit where on Monday morning. Jordan stood outside the window, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride. Relief. Something warmer. Something more dangerous. That evening, after the girls had fallen asleep, Angela stood in the kitchen staring at the car keys on the counter. Jordan walked in quietly. "You're still thinking about it," he said. She nodded. "No one has ever done something like this for me." He leaned against the counter. "You deserve ease in your life, Angela, not constant struggle." She looked at him, eyes soft. "You don't even know me that well." He held her gaze. "I know enough." The silence that followed was thick, intimate, charged with things neither of them dared to say. Angela swallowed. "Thank you, Jordan." He stepped closer, just slightly. "You don't have to thank me," he murmured. "Taking care of you feels natural." Her breath caught, because that didn't sound like an employer talking to a nanny anymore, and they both knew it. Monday morning came with new excitement. Angela stood in the driveway, staring at the beautiful SUV like it might disappear if she blinked too hard. The girls were already inside, buckled up, grinning from ear to ear. "Miss Angela, you're really driving us," Avery squealed. Angela laughed nervously. "Yes, I am. Seatbelts tight?" "Tight," they chorused. She drove carefully, cautiously, but confidently. The girls chatted the entire way, thrilled by the change in routine. When she dropped them off, they hugged her a little tighter than usual before running into the school building. Angela smiled, watching them go. Then she drove back home. The house was too quiet. Jordan's car was still in the driveway. She frowned. He never missed work. Angela stepped inside and found the house still, almost heavy with silence. She walked down the hallway and knocked gently on his bedroom door. "Jordan?" A faint voice came from inside. "Come in." She opened the door slowly. He was in bed, and he looked terrible. His eyes were dull, skin slightly flushed, hair messy like he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. A box of tissues sat on the nightstand beside him. Angela rushed forward instinctively. "Oh my goodness, you're burning up." "I'm fine," he murmured hoarsely. "You are not fine." She touched his forehead again, frowning deeply. "You have a fever. Did you take anything?" He shook his head slightly. "Didn't feel like moving." Angela sighed softly. "Of course you didn't." She disappeared briefly and returned with water, medication, and a cool cloth. She helped him sit up, her hand steady on his shoulder as he swallowed the tablets. "Lie back," she said gently. He obeyed without argument. She placed the cool cloth on his forehead, smoothing it down with careful fingers. And that was when he reached for her hand, weakly, almost unconsciously. but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. Angela froze. His hand was warm, large, strong even in his sick state. He didn't open his eyes. He just held her and didn't let go. Something flared inside her chest, a slow, dangerous warmth that spread through her body. She didn't try to move. She just sat there beside him as he drifted into sleep. Angela watched him quietly, really watched him, without the sharp suit, without the controlled expression, without the CEO mask. Just Jordan, a man who had loved deeply, lost painfully, raised 2 daughters with everything he had left, built a company from nothing, carried grief silently for 3 years. Her eyes traced his face. He's so handsome, she thought, not in a flashy way, but in a solid, dependable, gentle way. Her mind wandered without permission. He's kind. He's patient. He's a wonderful father. He's thoughtful. He notices things no one else does. He bought me a car so I wouldn't struggle. Her heart began to beat faster. He makes me feel safe. That thought startled her, because it was true, and because she hadn't meant to admit it to herself. She looked down at their hands still joined together, and for the first time since she moved into this house, Angela allowed herself to feel what she had been trying so hard to ignore. She liked him, not a little, not harmlessly, but deeply, quietly, dangerously. Jordan shifted slightly in his sleep, tightening his grip on her hand as if afraid she might disappear. Angela didn't move. She stayed there, holding his hand, watching him sleep, and feeling something inside her that had finally caught fire. Angela waited until his breathing evened out before she gently, carefully, slid her hand from his. He stirred slightly but didn't wake. She exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath the entire time. There was so much to do. She slipped out of the room quietly and headed straight for the kitchen. Her mind was still warm from everything she had just felt, but her hands moved on instinct. She rinsed chicken pieces, added water, onions, garlic, a little ginger, salt. Simple ingredients that made the kind of soup that healed more than just a cold. She set the pressure cooker on the stove and glanced at the clock. School pickup. She grabbed her bag, keys, and hurried out. The girls ran into her arms when she arrived. "Is Daddy okay?" Avery asked immediately. "He's resting," Angela said gently. "We're going to take very good care of him, okay?" They nodded seriously. On the way home, she bought them pizza so she wouldn't have to cook twice. They chatted quietly in the back seat, unusually calm, as if they understood something important without being told. When they got home, the smell of chicken soup filled the house. Angela quickly set the pizza on plates for the girls, then returned to the kitchen to finish the soup. To her surprise, Avery and Ariel followed her in. "Can we help?" Ariel asked softly. Angela smiled. "Of course." They stood on little stools, carefully stirring, passing her spoons, watching like tiny assistants on a very important mission. "This will make Daddy strong again," Avery said confidently. Angela's heart melted. "Yes, it will." The rest of the day passed gently, quietly. The girls played in whispers. They didn't run, they didn't shout. They peeked into their father's room only once, waving softly when he opened his eyes briefly before falling back asleep. Angela checked on him every hour, gave him water, helped him sit up to sip the soup, adjusted the blanket when he shivered. Each time he looked at her with those tired, grateful eyes that made her chest tighten. "Thank you," he murmured once. She only smiled. "Rest." Night came slowly. The girls went to bed without protest. Angela returned to his room with another cup of water and the thermometer. His fever had dropped slightly. He was sleeping more peacefully now. She sat on the couch near his bed, just in case he needed something. Just for a moment, she told herself, but exhaustion wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. The events of the day, the emotional weight of it all, finally caught up to her. She curled slightly on the couch, and without meaning to, she fell asleep. Early morning light filtered into the room. Jordan stirred. His body felt lighter, his head clearer. The fever had broken. He blinked slowly, adjusting to the light. Then he saw her. Angela. Curled on the small couch near his bed, one hand tucked under her cheek, breathing softly, still in the same clothes from yesterday. She had stayed. All night. For him. Something deep inside his chest shifted painfully. Carefully, he sat up, trying not to make noise. He reached for the blanket at the foot of his bed and stood. He walked over to her slowly, gently. He draped the blanket over her shoulders, tucking it in so she wouldn't feel cold. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. He stood there for a long moment, just looking at her. Her face was peaceful in sleep. Soft, vulnerable. He considered, just for a second, picking her up and laying her on the bed properly, but he knew that would wake her, and he didn't want to disturb this quiet moment. So instead, he stayed there, watching her, realizing something he could no longer deny. Angela wasn't just the girl's nanny anymore. She had quietly, effortlessly become the heart of his home. Jordan moved quietly that morning. His body still felt weak, but his mind was clear for the first time in 2 days. He glanced toward the couch where Angela still slept, wrapped in the blanket he had placed over her. She hadn't moved. Her face looked peaceful, exhausted. He checked the time. 6:15 a.m. He made a decision without thinking twice. He walked to the girls' room and gently shook them awake. "Daddy?" Avery mumbled. "Shh," he whispered. "We're going to let Miss Angela sleep this morning." "Why?" Ariel asked, rubbing her eyes. "Because she took very good care of me yesterday," he said softly, "and we should be grateful." The girls blinked up at him, understanding slowly. "Oh," Avery said. "Okay." They dressed quietly, brushed their teeth without arguing, ate breakfast without a single complaint. Jordan had never seen them this cooperative in the morning. Before leaving, he looked back toward the hallway leading to his room. "She's tired," he told them, "so we don't make noise." They nodded solemnly. An hour later, Angela woke with a violent jolt. Her eyes flew open. Sunlight, bright, too bright. She sat up instantly, heart racing. "What time is it?" She scrambled for her phone, panic flooding her chest. 8:07 a.m. "Oh my God!" She jumped to her feet, blanket falling to the floor. She rushed out of the room, calling out, "Avery! Ariel!" Silence. She hurried through the hallway, checked the kitchen, the living room, empty. Her heart pounded louder. She grabbed her phone to call Jordan, and the front door opened. Angela froze. Jordan stepped inside, keys in hand. He stopped when he saw her standing there, hair slightly messy, eyes wide with confusion, still wrapped in sleep. For a moment, he just looked at her and smiled softly. "You're awake," he said gently. She rushed toward him. "Jordan, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I overslept. I should have been up. The girls, did they miss school?" "Angela," he interrupted calmly. She stopped talking. "I took them," he said. "They're at school." She blinked. "You... what?" "I woke them up, got them ready, drove them myself." Her shoulders dropped in relief. "Oh, thank God." Then guilt washed over her. "I'm so sorry. I should have..." He stepped closer. "No," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have." She looked at him, confused. "You stayed with me all night," he continued. "You barely slept. The girls and I decided you deserved to rest." Angela stared at him. "You decided that?" He nodded. They agreed, reluctantly. A small, embarrassed smile tugged at her lips. "I can't believe I overslept like that," she murmured. Jordan's expression softened even more. "I can't believe you stayed beside me all night," he replied. That made her look up. There was no teasing in his eyes, no humor, just gratitude. Deep, sincere, heavy. "I've never had anyone take care of me like that before," he said quietly. Her chest tightened. "I just didn't want you to struggle alone," she whispered. He held her gaze for a long moment, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them again. Something warmer, closer, more personal than it had ever been before. "Thank you, Angela," he said softly, and this time she could feel that he meant much more than just the words. Jordan did not go to work. Angela realized that when she came downstairs after washing her face and changing, expecting an empty house, instead she found him in the kitchen, in sweatpants, attempting to flip pancakes. She froze at the doorway. "You're supposed to be resting." He glanced over his shoulder. "I am resting." "You're cooking. That counts." She crossed her arms. "You still had a fever yesterday." "And you had no sleep," he countered smoothly. "So today, Miss Brooks, you are off duty." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "I insisted the girls behave this morning. I dropped them at school. And now," he said, plating the pancakes, "you're going to sit down and eat breakfast that you did not prepare." She stared at him. "You don't have to." "I know," he interrupted gently. "I want to." Something in the way he said it made her obey. She sat. They ate at the kitchen table, just the two of them. It felt strangely intimate without the twins' chatter filling the space. He poured her juice. She thanked him softly. Their fingers brushed when he passed the syrup. Neither of them moved away immediately. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it lingered. Jordan held her gaze a second too long. Angela's heart responded instantly. "You make good pancakes," she said, trying to steady herself. He smirked faintly. "I have had lots of experience and of course help from YouTube." She laughed, and the sound filled the room in a way that made him realize just how quiet his life had been before she arrived. After breakfast, he leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "the twins always choose cartoons." She raised an eyebrow. "I haven't watched a proper movie in years." She smiled. "That sounds tragic." "It is," he replied gravely. "So I propose we fix that." Her pulse skipped. "A movie?" "Yes, doctor's orders. We both need to sit down and rest before pickup time." She hesitated for half a second, then nodded. They settled on the couch, choosing something light but engaging. Not too romantic, not too serious. At first they sat with careful space between them, but halfway through the movie that distance naturally shortened. Not intentionally, not dramatically, just slowly. Their shoulders touched. Angela felt the warmth of him through the thin fabric of her sweater. Neither moved. There was a moment when something funny happened on screen and she laughed, turning toward him at the same time he turned toward her. They were suddenly very close, too close. His eyes dropped briefly to her lips before lifting back to her eyes. The air thickened, but then the scene changed, and the moment passed. Barely. After lunch, Jordan stood and stretched. "Let's pick them up together." Her eyebrows lifted. "Together?" "Why not?" he said lightly. "Then pizza, ice cream. We'll get takeaways for later so no one has to cook." Angela studied him. "You're in a very generous mood today." He met her gaze steadily. "Maybe I'm just grateful." Her breath caught again. The twins nearly tackled them at pickup. "You both came?" Avery squealed. "Yes," Jordan said, lifting Ariel into his arms. "We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Ariel asked. "Daddy not being sick," Angela answered. "And Miss Angela not being tired," Avery added. Jordan and Angela exchanged a look, the kind that said everything. Pizza turned into laughter. Ice cream turned into sticky fingers and wide smiles. By the time they returned home with takeaways for later, the girls were glowing with happiness. Homework was done quickly. Dinner reheated easily. Baths were fast, giggles echoing down the hallway. It felt whole, balanced, right. That night, Angela tucked the girls in. "Today was the best," Avery whispered sleepily. "Because Daddy stayed home," Ariel murmured. "And because you were both smiling," Angela replied softly. The door opened behind her. Jordan stepped in quietly. He walked to the beds, kissing each girl gently on the forehead. Good night, my loves. Good night, Daddy, they whispered. Angela stood beside him. He turned automatically, and without thinking, he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead too, just as he had the girls. It happened so naturally neither of them reacted immediately, until they did. Angela froze. Jordan pulled back slowly. Silence. The girls were already drifting to sleep, unaware. Jordan's eyes locked onto hers. He hadn't meant to. Or maybe he had. His voice was low. Good night, Angela. But it sounded different now. Not employer, not casual, not say. Angela's pulse thundered in her ears. Good night, Jordan, she whispered. And as they stepped out into the hallway together, both of them knew. That kiss had not been accidental at all. The house was quiet, too quiet. Angela lay on her side, staring at the faint glow of moonlight slipping through her curtains. She could still feel it. That kiss. It had been soft, warm, brief. But it hadn't felt like the girl's goodnight kiss. Her fingers brushed her forehead unconsciously. It was just a peck, she told herself. He kisses the girls like that every night. There was nothing to it. But then why did her heart flutter like this? Why had his lips lingered a second too long? Her stomach tightened. If it was nothing, then maybe that's exactly what it was. Nothing. Maybe he sees me the same way he sees them. Just safe. Family, not a woman. That thought stung more than she expected. She turned onto her back and stared at the ceiling. Does he even look at me that way? Or am I just convenient? Helpful? Reliable? Her chest felt heavy, because the truth was, she had looked at him that way, for a while now. Across the hall, Jordan was also wide awake. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, running both hands through his hair. Idiot, he muttered under his breath. What had possessed him? He had walked in, kissed the girls goodnight, and then, without thinking, leaned in and kissed Angela too. It had felt natural, too natural, and that was the problem. What if she thinks I'm some kind of creep? What if she thinks I crossed a line? What if she files a complaint? He swallowed hard. What if she leaves? That thought hit him straight in the chest. The house without Angela in it felt unimaginable. She wasn't just help. She wasn't just support. She was warmth, stability, home. And he had risked all of that because he couldn't control one stupid impulse. He groaned and fell back onto the mattress. Great, Jordan. Brilliant. Minutes passed, then an hour. Angela tossed and turned. Jordan stared at the ceiling. Both of them replayed the same 3 seconds over and over again. Was there pressure? Did it linger? Did the other respond? Did they pull away too quickly? Every tiny detail felt magnified. Angela hugged her pillow tighter. If he meant something by it, would he come knock on my door? Her heart leapt at the thought. Then she froze. No. What if I open the door and he's standing there? What would I even say? She squeezed her eyes shut. Go to sleep, she whispered to herself. Across the hall, Jordan sat up suddenly. Maybe I should apologize, just clear the air. He stood, walked halfway to the door, stopped. What if she's asleep? What if waking her makes it worse? He sighed and stepped back. Coward. He lay down again. At around 2:47 a.m., Angela found herself sitting up too. Her room felt too small, too full of thoughts. She padded quietly toward the door. Her hand hovered over the knob. At the exact same moment, Jordan's hand hovered over his. Both froze. Neither knew the other was doing the same thing. The silence in the hallway felt almost charged. Angela slowly pulled her hand back. Jordan did the same. They both retreated like they'd almost touched fire. The night stretched on. A very long night of what-ifs. What if he meant it? What if he didn't? What if she's hurt? What if he regrets it? What if this changes everything? Neither slept. When dawn finally crept in through the windows, both of them were exhausted, and neither had answers. Only one undeniable truth. That kiss had shifted something. whether they admitted it or not. And morning was coming. Morning came with polite distance. Jordan listened carefully from his room, waiting. He heard the twins arguing over toothpaste, heard Angela's soft voice reminding them not to fight before school, heard the bathroom door close. That was his window. He stepped out quickly. "Morning, Munchkins," he said cheerfully as the girls brushed their teeth. "Morning, Daddy." He kissed their heads, exaggerated his smile, and before either twin could mention Angela, he slipped back down the hallway like a man escaping a crime scene. He stayed in his room until he heard the front door close. Only then did he exhale. Angela, meanwhile, had perfected her own strategy. She lingered downstairs longer than necessary, rearranged already neat cushions, wiped an already clean counter, checked her phone twice. She listened carefully for the sound of his car engine. Nothing. She waited another 2 minutes, then 5. Only when she finally heard the garage door open and close did she allow herself to go upstairs. The hallway was empty. His door was shut. Her chest tightened. In relief or disappointment, she wasn't sure. Good, she told herself. This is good, professional, mature. But it didn't feel good. It felt like something fragile had cracked. That evening, Jordan sat across from his oldest friend, Marcus, nursing a drink he hadn't really touched. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying him. "So," Marcus said casually, "how are the girls doing with the new nanny? They still attached?" Jordan nodded. "They adore her." "That's good. She's great," Jordan admitted. "Everything's been smooth." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "But?" Jordan sighed heavily. "Until I made a blunder last night." Marcus perked up instantly. "Oh, this sounds interesting." Jordan hesitated, then just said it. "I kissed her." Marcus blinked, then burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle, full head-thrown-back laughter. Jordan groaned. "I knew I shouldn't have told you." "So that's why you wanted to go out tonight?" Marcus wiped his eyes. "You're running away from your own house." "Stop laughing," Jordan muttered. "It's not funny. It's a little funny." "Marcus." Okay. He straightened up. "What kind of kiss?" "Forehead," Jordan said quickly. "Like I do with the girls." Marcus raised a brow. And maybe not exactly like I do with the girls." Marcus whistled softly. "Ah." Jordan rubbed his temples. "Now we're both avoiding each other like teenagers. I don't even know what she's thinking. What if she thinks I'm inappropriate? What if she leaves?" Marcus leaned forward. "Do you like her?" Jordan didn't answer immediately. That silence was answer enough. Marcus smiled knowingly. "That's what I thought." "It's complicated," Jordan said quietly. "She's good to the girls. They're happy. They trust her. She makes the house feel full again." And? "And if I say something and she rejects me, what then? Does she leave? Does it get awkward? Do my kids lose someone they care about because I couldn't control my feelings?" Marcus took a slow sip of his drink. "Or," he said calmly, "she might like you too." Jordan shook his head. "That's a gamble. Everything worth having is." Jordan looked down at his glass. "I should end it," he murmured. "Whatever this is, push it down. Be her employer, nothing more. My kids come first." Marcus studied him carefully. "Do your kids look happy around her?" "Yes." "Do you look happy around her?" Jordan didn't answer. Marcus smirked. "Exactly." Jordan leaned back in his chair, conflicted. "I can't risk their happiness," he said softly. "They've already lost enough. If I miscalculate this, if she walks away..." He shook his head. "No, I'll handle it. I'll fix it. I'll make sure nothing crosses the line again." Marcus sighed. "You can try, but feelings don't disappear just because you give them a lecture." Jordan stood, tossing a few notes onto the table. "I'll figure it out." Marcus called after him, half teasing, half serious. "Or you could just follow your heart for once." Jordan didn't respond, but the words followed him all the way home. The silence didn't last forever. Jordan broke it. 3 evenings after the kiss, he asked to speak to Angela once the twins were asleep. They stood in the living room, too much space between them. He didn't look nervous anymore. He looked resolved. "I owe you an apology," he said calmly. Her heart dropped before she even knew why. "For the kiss," he continued. "It was a lapse in judgment, a moment of weakness. It won't happen again." Moment of weakness. The words landed heavier than she expected. He continued, steady, controlled. "You work here. You take care of my daughters. I crossed a line. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. She opened her mouth to speak, to say it hadn't been that, but the composed look on his face stopped her. He had already decided. "My girls come first," he added quietly. "Always." She nodded. "Of course," she said. Professional, polite. And just like that, something shut down between them. He stepped back, distance restored, line redrawn. The storm. The storm came 2 nights later. Thunder shook the windows. Lightning lit up the house in white flashes. Angela slept lightly that night, and somewhere between thunderclaps and rain she drifted into a dream. In the dream there was no distance, no apology, no professionalism. Jordan wasn't careful or restrained. He wasn't distant. He looked at her the way she had secretly hoped he would, like a woman. Not an employee. Not safe. Wanted. The dream wasn't explicit, but it was intense. Close hands, warm breath, his voice low and certain, the feeling of being chosen. When she woke, her heart was racing. The room was dark again, quiet, but the feeling lingered. Not embarrassment, not shame. Longing. She lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying it in fragments, the way he had looked at her, the certainty, the warmth, and for the first time she admitted it fully. She wanted him, not as an employer, not as the twins' father, as a man. The days after that was the problem, because ever since his apology, Jordan had been nothing but professional, polite, respectful, measured. He no longer lingered near her in the kitchen, no accidental brushes of hands, no prolonged eye contact. He thanked her. He discussed schedules. He kept his distance. And it hurt more than she expected, because now she knew what she wanted, and she couldn't have it. Sometimes she caught herself watching him, the way he rolled up his sleeves, the way he knelt to talk to the girls at eye level, the way he smiled without realizing. Her dream would flicker in her mind, and her chest would ache. He never looked at her that way anymore, never let his gaze rest too long, never gave her room to wonder. She found herself wishing she had said something different that night, wishing she hadn't nodded so quickly, wishing she had told him the kiss hadn't been a mistake, that it hadn't been weakness, that it had been the most honest moment between them. Now it was too late. He had chosen restraint, and she had agreed. The realization. One afternoon, as she watched him help one of the twins with a school project, laughing softly when glue got everywhere, something inside her shifted again. He wasn't pulling away because he didn't care. He was pulling away because he did. Because he thought it was the right thing. Because he was putting his daughters first. That realization didn't ease the ache. It deepened it. That night, lying awake again, she whispered into the darkness, "I wish I hadn't accepted your apology." But she had. And now she didn't know how to undo it. Saturday outings had become tradition. Park, ice cream, laughter, sunlight. Angela usually loved them, but today she couldn't breathe properly, because Jordan wasn't just laughing with the twins, he was laughing with her. "Jordan, I didn't know you came here," the woman had said brightly, sliding into their outdoor cafe table as if she belonged there. Tall, polished, confident, office woman. Angela recognized the type immediately. "I didn't know you knew this place," Jordan had replied casually, clearly surprised but not uncomfortable. They seemed familiar, too familiar. The woman, Claire, asked about the girls, tried to talk to them, The twins were polite, but after 2 attempts, they turned back to Angela instead. "Auntie Angela, can we get sprinkles?" "Auntie Angela, look what I drew." Angela forced a smile, but inside, something ugly and hot twisted. Claire noticed. Her eyes flicked toward Angela more than once, measured, assessing. "Oh, and this is?" Claire asked sweetly. "Our nanny," Jordan said simply. Just that. Our nanny. Professional. Distant. Angela nodded politely. Claire's smile sharpened. When she finally stood to leave, she placed her hand lightly on Jordan's shoulder. "See you Monday," she said, voice low, familiar. Her fingers lingered a second too long. Angela saw it. Jordan didn't react, but that didn't matter, because the damage was done. The house felt too quiet that evening, too tight. Angela helped the girls with baths, pajamas, stories. She smiled when expected, but her chest burned. Our nanny. When she came downstairs after settling the twins, she saw it. An open bottle of wine on the counter, 1 glass half full. Jordan must have poured it before his shower. She stared at it, then poured herself a glass. She didn't usually drink. But tonight she didn't want to think. The first sip burned. The second went down easier. By the third, her thoughts felt softer, looser. She poured more. Too much, too fast. By the time Jordan came downstairs, hair damp, sleeves rolled casually, Angela was sitting on the kitchen counter with the bottle beside her and a nearly empty glass in hand. He froze, alarm flashing across his face. "Angela?" She looked at him slowly. Her cheeks were flushed. "You're drinking?" he asked carefully. "Are you okay? You've been quiet all afternoon." She laughed, but it wobbled. "You've never invited me before." He blinked. "Invited you to what?" "To drink," she said, gesturing vaguely. "You drink. I've seen you." Her words slurred slightly. He stepped closer, concerned now. "You've never wanted to." She tried to slide off the counter. Her legs failed her. She grabbed the table edge. Jordan moved instantly, steadying her arms. "Okay, that's enough," he said softly. "You've had too much." She looked up at him then. Really looked. Eyes glassy, hurt. "You don't ask me anything," she said, pointing weakly at him. "You just decide about everything." His expression shifted. "Angela, you decide the kiss was a mistake." Her voice cracked. "You decide it won't happen again. You decide what's best for everyone." Her finger pressed lightly against his chest. "How is that fair?" The room went very still. Rain began tapping lightly against the windows again, like an echo of the previous storm. She stepped closer, unsteady. "I also want to know," she whispered, eyes shining, "if it was a mistake." Her balance gave way. She stumbled forward. Jordan caught her immediately, arms wrapping around her waist to keep her from falling. And suddenly, she was in his arms, exactly like the dream, her breathing shallow, his hands steadying her. For one suspended second, they just stared at each other. And then she kissed him. Not hesitant, not accident-y, soft but intentional. Everything she hadn't said poured into it. Jordan froze, shock, want, conflict, before he could even respond. Her body went slack, her head dropped against his shoulder. "Asleep?" he whispered. He looked down. She was completely unconscious. He let out a breath somewhere between disbelief and frustration. "You cannot do this to me," he murmured softly. But he didn't let her go. He carried her upstairs carefully, laid her down gently, brushed a strand of hair from her face. And this time, he did not kiss her. He stepped back instead, conflicted beyond words, because now he knew. It wasn't just him. And that made everything more dangerous. Morning was going to be brutal. One of the twins hadn't been asleep. She had come out of her room for water. And that's when she saw it. Daddy carrying Angela upstairs. Not rushed, not annoyed. Careful, like something fragile. She saw the way he looked at her. Soft, almost scared, like he was holding something precious. She didn't say anything that night, but the next morning, she whispered everything to her sister. "He's in love," the other twin gasped. "With Auntie Angela?" "Yes." They sat in silence for a moment. Then one of them said what both were thinking. "If they get married, she won't leave." The logic was simple, childlike, protective. They adored Angela. The thought of her meeting someone else and leaving them felt unbearable. Decision made. They would investigate. Angela woke up with her head pounding, her mouth dry, her memories blurry. She barely registered the soft knock before the twins climbed onto her bed. "Auntie Angela?" She groaned softly. "Do you like Daddy?" That cut straight through the fog. Her eyes snapped open. "What?" The twins stared at her with unsettling seriousness. Like, one clarified. Her heart skipped violently. Panic rushed in before logic. "No way," she said too quickly, pushing herself up. "He's my employer. He's your dad. I would never do that." The words felt sharp in her mouth. Too sharp. The twins exchanged a look, disappointed, but composed. "Okay," one said carefully. They slid off the bed. Angela pressed her fingers to her temples. Why did that question feel like a trap? What she didn't know. Jordan had been standing just outside the door. He had brought honey water, old remedy. He'd remembered her mentioning it once. He had paused when he heard their voices, and then he heard her answer, "No way. I would never do that." He stood very still. The words settled heavily in his chest. Of course. He had been right. Last night was just alcohol, embarrassment, nothing more. He placed the glass quietly on the floor by her door and walked away. The twins found him in the kitchen flipping pancakes. "Daddy?" "Yes?" "Do you like Auntie Angela?" He didn't even hesitate. "No way," he said calmly. "She works for us. That wouldn't be appropriate." The exact same words. Professional. Measured. The twins frowned. They didn't believe him. They had seen his face, and they had seen hers last night too, even if she had said no this morning. Children notice things adults pretend don't exist. They walked away, unconvinced. Angela eventually dragged herself out of bed. That's when she saw it. The glass, honey water. Her heart dropped. He had brought it. He had stood here. How much had he heard? Then, memory crashed back in. The wine, the jealousy, her words, her pointing at him, her asking if it was a mistake. The kiss. Her stomach flipped. Oh no. Heat rushed to her face. She had kissed him. She had kissed him. And he hadn't stopped her. But he hadn't continued either. Had he stayed? Had he left immediately? She didn't know. But one thing was clear. She had meant it. Even drunk. Especially drunk. The alcohol hadn't created feelings. It had exposed them. She squared her shoulders. If he asked her about it, she would tell the truth. No more hiding. No more polite distance. If he asked. She went downstairs. Jordan was at the stove. Calm, composed, distant. "Morning," he said politely. "Morning," she replied. Their eyes met briefly, then both looked away. He did not mention the kiss. He did not mention last night. He did not ask. Because in his mind, he already had the answer. No way. I would never do that. And she waited. For him to say something. For him to ask. For him to acknowledge. But he didn't. Because in her mind, she had humiliated herself. And in his mind, she had rejected him. So they moved through the day like actors in a well-rehearsed play. Schedules, lunch, homework, small talk. Nothing happened. Everything happened. And the twins watched carefully. Very worried, because adults, they realized, were incredibly bad at telling the truth. Friday afternoon was peaceful. Homework books open, juice boxes on the table, soft music in the background. Angela was explaining fractions when the doorbell rang. She frowned slightly. Jordan wasn't home yet. She opened the door. Claire, polished as always, heels, perfect hair, a folder tucked under her arm. "Oh," Claire smiled brightly. Hi, I'm just dropping off some files Jordan needs to review. He left early today. Yes, Angela replied politely. He mentioned a meeting. Claire stepped inside without really being invited. I thought I'd wait. It's been such a long week at the office and we barely get time to finish conversations there. Angela's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The girls came into the hallway. Claire crouched slightly. Hi, girls. Remember me? They nodded, polite, unenthusiastic. Claire straightened. Your dad and I have been working very closely lately. Big project, late nights. She glanced at Angela as she said it. Measured, intentional. Angela's smile didn't move. That sounds demanding, she said calmly. Oh, it is, Claire replied lightly. But Jordan and I work very well together. The implication hung in the air. Angela felt the jealousy spark, but she didn't feed it. She simply turned. Girls, homework isn't finished. One twin looked directly at Claire. When are you leaving? Angela almost choked. Claire blinked. Excuse me? We want to finish homework, the other twin added firmly. You can do it here, Claire said smoothly, moving toward the dining table. I can help while I wait for your dad. The twins didn't even look at each other before answering. No, thank you, Claire forced a laugh. I'm actually very good at math. We prefer Angela, one said. She's good. We know her. We trust her. We like her. The last sentence landed. Claire's smile stiffened. Well, she said lightly, if we spend time together, you'll get to know me too. The twins crossed their arms. We don't want to. You can leave the papers. We'll tell Daddy. The room went very quiet. Angela could see Claire recalculating, testing. This was the moment. Angela could stay silent, let it turn awkward, or she could step in. She stepped forward calmly. Claire, she said gently but firmly, Jordan isn't expecting company. If you'd like to leave the documents, I'll make sure he gets them. Her tone wasn't hostile. It wasn't jealous. It was steady, confident. This is my space. Claire studied her. Of course, she replied after a beat. I just thought I'd be helpful. I'm sure you are, Angela said smoothly. At the office. Claire's eyes flickered, subtle, but she understood the boundary. She placed the folder on the table. Please let him know I stopped by. We will, the twins said immediately. Claire gave one last assessing glance. First at Angela, then at the girls, before walking out. The door closed. Silence. The twins turned to Angela. You're better than her, one declared. Angela blinked. That wasn't very polite. It's true, the other insisted. Angela exhaled slowly. Jealousy still simmered inside her, but something else had replaced it. Resolve. She didn't need to compete. She was already here, already trusted, already chosen, at least by the girls. But the real question lingered. Had she been chosen by him? And did she dare find out? That evening, after the twins were in bed, Angela was tidying the living room when Jordan walked in. Claire had already texted him, asking if he'd seen the papers she dropped off. Angela froze. Her chest tightened. She knew she couldn't just stay silent, but she also couldn't openly say, I don't want Claire here because I... Instead, she crouched slightly behind the twins' chairs, the small protective wall, and said softly, The girls, they didn't really like her being here, she began carefully. They were very upset. They like things a certain way, with me. Jordan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Upset? Yes, Angela added, a little more confidence creeping in. They trust me. They feel safe. They're worried if someone else spends time with you. I mean, someone new. They won't get the same attention or care. They told me to tell you. Jordan studied her. Angela peeked out from behind the chair, making sure her expression was calm, composed, professional almost, though her heart was hammering. I see, he said quietly. So the girls made it clear. Angela nodded, pretending to be casual. Yes,
They wanted to finish homework, and they asked me to make sure you know she can leave." Jordan exhaled, half amused, half impressed.
"You really protect them, huh?" he said softly.
Angela gave a tiny shrug, hiding the flush on her cheeks. "Someone has to." Jordan leaned back slightly, thinking. He didn't know that she was protecting herself too, not just the twins. And as Angela straightened and went about her work, she felt a tiny thrill. She'd drawn a boundary without ever speaking about her own feelings, and he had noticed, subtly, quietly, in that way he always did when he really paid attention. But inside, a storm was brewing. Both of them were holding back, and neither realized just how close they were to tipping over. The twins had left that morning, their suitcases bouncing behind them as they practically ran to the car. Their excitement was infectious. Granny's spoiling knew no bounds, and the girls couldn't wait to share every detail about Miss Angela. Angela had waved them off with a smile, careful to hide the small ache in her chest. The house was suddenly too quiet. Every tick of the clock echoed. Even the soft hum of the refrigerator sounded intrusive in the emptiness. Angela moved through the kitchen with purpose, chopping vegetables, seasoning the meat, arranging everything on plates with care. She hummed softly, almost to herself, lost in the rhythm. Cooking had always been her comfort, a way to organize her thoughts, to ground herself. Tonight, she wanted it to be perfect. Jordan had worked so hard all week, juggling the office and the girls. She wanted him to walk into something warm, something that felt like home, something that reminded him she cared. The meal finished, the table set, the candles lit, and the smell of roasted chicken filling the air, Angela sank onto the couch with a soft sigh. She pulled a throw around herself and closed her eyes for just a moment, imagining him stepping through the door and the relief in his face at seeing dinner ready. Minutes passed, hours. The quiet tick of the clock turned into a lullaby. She shifted, then curled up more tightly under the throw. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier. She tried to fight it, just a little longer, just until he got home, but exhaustion won. By the time Jordan finally stepped through the front door, the house was silent except for the soft creak of the floors and the lingering scent of the meal she had prepared. He froze in the doorway, taking in the scene. Angela lay curled on the couch, her hair loose, a few strands falling across her face. The throw was barely draped over her shoulders. Plates sat on the table, untouched, perfectly arranged. He felt it all at once, the thoughtfulness, the effort, the waiting, the tenderness, the quiet patience that mirrored the quiet longing he had been feeling himself. Guilt coiled in his chest. He didn't want to wake her, didn't want to face the disappointment that would inevitably flash across her face if she had realized he'd been late. With soft, careful hands, he draped a blanket over her, tucking it gently around her shoulders. His fingers lingered for a second too long, brushing a stray strand of hair from her cheek before he let go. Then he noticed the untouched plates. His chest tightened. He grabbed a notepad and scribbled quickly. "I am sorry. I will make it up to you this weekend. I promise. Was busy in the office, working on a new project. As soon as the deal goes through, I am all yours." He placed it beside the food, and for a moment, just stared at her. The rise and fall of her chest, the soft, slow rhythm of sleep. Her presence downstairs, waiting, cooking, caring. It clawed at him in a way he didn't expect. For a man who controlled everything, he realized there was one thing he could not control: how much he felt for her. He left the living room quietly, moving to his bedroom. Sleep should come easily after a long day, but his mind replayed the image of her curled on the couch, of the note, of the untouched meal she had prepared for him. Angela woke later that night, stirred by a shift in the couch cushions. She rubbed her eyes, groggy, and noticed the small note lying beside the plate. She read it slowly, letting each word sink in. Her chest warmed. His thoughtfulness, his tenderness, the promise. And something more, something she couldn't name,
lingered in the phrasing, in the way he had written, as if he had been thinking of her in that quiet moment after a long day at the office. She sighed, gently packing the food into the fridge so it wouldn't spoil. Even the simplest act of preserving the meal felt intimate. She curled into her own bed that night, twisting and turning, her mind replaying the words again and again. As soon as the deal goes through, I am all yours. She didn't know what all yours meant in this context exactly, not fully. But the thought of him, stayed with her long after her body finally surrendered to sleep. And for Jordan, lying in his bedroom across the hall, sleep was impossible. The image of her waiting, the gentle care she had shown, the quiet hope in cooking and setting the table. It lingered in his mind like a soft, constant ache. Two souls, in the same house, both restless, both thinking of the other, both aware that something between them had just grown a little closer, though neither dared admit it aloud. Angela didn't stir until well past her usual waking hour. The twisting and turning during the night, her thoughts spinning around Jordan, the note, the untouchable weight of his tenderness, had robbed her of sleep. She stretched, blinking at the sunlight spilling through the windows. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For a moment, she worried she had overslept. Then her eyes fell on the kitchen table. Breakfast. Steam rose gently from plates carefully arranged, golden pancakes, scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, and coffee still warm. A small note sat beside the food. I'm really sorry about last night. Angela's chest warmed. She had expected nothing, and yet here was this small gesture. A kindness wrapped in words, in effort. She sat down, letting herself relax for the first time that morning. Each bite was heartily devoured. Every flavor reminded her that someone had thought about her, taken care of her, while she slept downstairs. When she finished, she pulled out her phone and sent a simple message. Thank you for breakfast. It was amazing. Almost instantly, a reply came. I hope it was to your liking. A smile tugged at her lips. She typed back, teasing lightly, You're a very good cook. His reply was immediate, casual, but warm. Not as good as you. The simple exchange left her heart fluttering. For the next few minutes, they chatted back and forth. Small jokes, light teasing, gentle compliments. The world outside the quiet house didn't exist. Then the phone rang. It was the twins. Their excited voices came through the line. Auntie Angela, when are you coming to visit us? How's Granny's house? She asked, smiling despite herself. It's amazing, one of them squealed. Angela's heart warmed, but she felt a pang of guilt for not being there with them. She reassured them with a few minutes of chatter, answering their questions, laughing at their silly stories, and telling them she missed them too. When she hung up, she checked her phone again. Later that afternoon, another message from Jordan appeared. Might be very late today. Angela sighed and decided she would make the best of the quiet house. She ordered a takeaway, curled up on the couch with a blanket, and immersed herself in a series she had been meaning to catch up on. Between episodes, she scrolled through social media, catching up on friends and stories, but her mind kept drifting back to Jordan, to the breakfast, to the quiet gestures that said more than words could. Night fell. The house grew quiet once more. Angela finally climbed into bed, tired from the hours of twisting, turning, and thinking. She felt the weight of the day, the stillness of the empty house, and the faint pull of her heart toward him. Tomorrow, she thought, things might be different. Or perhaps, she hoped quietly, they might start to feel like they always should have. Friday morning arrived quietly. By the time Angela woke up, Jordan had already left. No breakfast on the table this time, no note. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling oddly drained. The emotional roller coaster of the past 2 days had caught up with her. She pulled the blanket over her head and allowed herself the luxury of drifting back to sleep. When she woke again, the sun was high, nearly noon. She felt lighter, rested, maybe even hopeful. She showered slowly, letting the warm water wash over her shoulders, clearing the remnants of restless thoughts. The house was silent, just as it had been all week, until it wasn't. The sound of the front door opening echoed faintly downstairs. Her heart stopped. Jordan wasn't supposed to be home yet. For one terrifying second, her mind spiraled. Had something happened? Had someone broken in? Barely dressed, hair damp and falling around her shoulders, she hurried out of her room and toward the staircase. And then she saw him. Jordan stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her with the widest, most boyish smile she had ever seen on his face. His tie was loosened, his jacket hung over one arm. His eyes were bright, slightly unfocused. He looked happy, and maybe just a little drunk. Before she could speak, he bounded up the stairs 2 at a time and pulled her into a hug. A tight, warm, overwhelming hug. "Finally!" He laughed against her hair. "The deal is done. It's over. We won. Those guys wanted to pop champagne at the office, but I couldn't wait. I wanted to come home. To you. To you." The words wrapped around her like fire. She stiffened slightly, wriggling out of his embrace. And that's when he realized. She was barely dressed. His eyes widened in horror. "I'm so sorry." He stepped back immediately, running a hand through his hair. "I stepped out of line again, didn't I?" Angela swallowed her racing heart. "It's okay," she said softly. "Did you have lunch?" He shook his head dramatically, pouting like a child. "No." She couldn't help it. She laughed. "Sit. Let me get dressed. I'll make something for us." He obeyed immediately. She returned quickly, throwing on a simple dress, hair still slightly damp. In the kitchen, she reheated leftovers from the fridge, plating them carefully. Jordan watched her like she was performing magic. They sat across from each other at the table. "Tell me everything," she said. And he did. He talked about negotiations, the tension, the risks, the breakthrough moment when the final signature hit the page. His eyes lit up as he spoke. His hands moved animatedly. He looked alive. She had never seen him this free. The afternoon slipped into evening with the television humming softly in the background. He insisted she not cook dinner. "I am not letting you lift a finger tonight," he declared, ordering food. Wine followed, then more wine, maybe too much wine. They sat opposite each other at first, the coffee table between them. Conversation flowed easily, laughter came naturally, but at some point he stood up, glass in hand, and moved to sit beside her. She looked at him questioningly. He reached for the blanket draped over her legs. "It's fluffy," he said casually. "I like it." She narrowed her eyes. "You just wanted an excuse." He grinned. "Maybe." Their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. Minutes passed in a comfortable silence until Jordan suddenly straightened. His expression changed. The playful haze faded into something serious. He set his glass down. Then he took her hands in his. Her heart began pounding. "I know I've had too much to drink," he started quietly, "and tomorrow I might not remember everything I'm about to say." Her breath caught. "But if I don't say it tonight, I'm going to lose my mind." He squeezed her hands gently. "Angela, I like you." He shook his head immediately. "No, that's not it." His voice trembled. "I'm in love with you." The world stopped. "I love you so much it's driving me crazy," he continued, words spilling faster now as if he'd been holding them back for months. "I haven't felt this way since my wife died. I thought I never would again. I didn't even want to feel again." His eyes glistened. "Then you walked into our lives." Her vision blurred. "It was like I'd been living in darkness, just surviving, just existing for the kids. They were my only light, but even they reminded me of her sometimes, and it hurt so much." His grip tightened. "But you changed everything. The house is alive again. The girls laugh more. I laugh more. I come home and it feels like peace, real peace." He swallowed hard. "Today, I couldn't wait to get back here. Even without the kids. I just wanted to see you." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Jordan," she whispered. "No," he said quickly. "Please, let me finish." His voice broke. I know this might be too much. Maybe you don't feel the same way. I would understand. Truly. You can reject me. His next words came out barely above a whisper. But please, don't leave. Her heart shattered. Don't leave us, he corrected softly. The girls love you. Losing you would devastate them. He shook his head quickly. I'm not trying to manipulate you, I swear. You don't owe me anything. Just, if you can't love me, stay for them. Stay because this house is finally whole again. Silence. Heavy, trembling, vulnerable. When he finally finished, all the fight drained out of him. He leaned forward slowly and buried his head against her shoulder. No pressure, he murmured. Take your time. Think about it. His breathing gradually slowed. The whine, the emotional release, the exhaustion of weeks, months, years. Within minutes, he fell asleep. Right there, head resting on her shoulder, hands still loosely holding hers. Angela sat frozen. Her heart thundered in her chest. He loved her. He had said it. Not casually, not impulsively, explosively, desperately, honestly. And she knew, deep in the quiet place she had been avoiding, that she loved him too. The question was no longer whether feelings existed. The question was whether she was brave enough to accept them. She gently brushed his hair back from his forehead, and for the first time since entering this house, she felt like she truly belonged. Jordan woke with clarity. Not confusion, not regret. Clarity. The wine haze was gone. The headache was manageable. But the memory of last night? Sharp, precise, undeniable. He remembered everything. Every word. Every plea. Every second he had buried his face against her shoulder like a man afraid of breaking. He sat up slowly on the couch. She hadn't rejected him. She hadn't run. She had stayed. That alone gave him courage. Upstairs, Angela stood in front of her mirror longer than usual. Her mind replayed his voice. I love you. Don't leave. And then the way he had fallen asleep against her. Vulnerable. Unguarded. She pressed her hand to her chest. She couldn't let him wake up thinking it meant nothing. Today had to be the day. When she walked downstairs, he was already standing in the kitchen. They both froze. The air between them wasn't awkward. It was charged. Saturday sunlight poured through the windows, making everything feel brighter, exposed. Good morning, he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes searched her face carefully. Good morning, she replied. A pause. He stepped forward first. I remember everything. Her heart jumped. All of it, he continued, and I don't take a single word back. Silence, breathless. I shouldn't have said it the way I did, he added quietly. Not like I was begging you not to leave. That wasn't fair. She shook her head immediately. You weren't begging. You were honest. He looked at her then, really looked at her. And I meant it, he said. I'm in love with you. No alcohol, no haze, no escape, just truth. Her breath trembled. I know. His brow furrowed slightly. You know? She stepped closer. Because I like you too. The words felt like stepping off a cliff and landing safely. Jordan didn't move for half a second, like his brain needed to catch up. You... what? She smiled through nerves. I tried not to. I told myself it was wrong, that I was crossing lines, that your wife... He gently interrupted. My wife would want me to live again. That settled something deep inside her. He reached for her hands slowly. No guilt, he said firmly. Not about her, not about the kids. They adore you. And I need you. Her fingers tightened around his. Then what are we doing? She whispered. He exhaled, a soft laugh breaking through. We're done pretending. His hands slid to her waist, cautiously at first, giving her space to retreat. She didn't. Angela, he murmured, closer now. Will you go on a date with me? Her laugh came out breathless. We live in the same house. Still counts, she nodded. Yes, that was all. He pulled her gently against him, and this time the kiss wasn't fragile. It wasn't accidental. It was long, certain, full of months of restrained longing finally allowed to breathe. Her hands slid up his chest. His grip tightened slightly at her waist. The world narrowed to warmth and heartbeat, and finally, when they parted, foreheads resting together, he whispered, So, we're dating? She smiled. Yes. A slow grin spread across his face. Good, because I cleared my entire weekend. Her eyes widened. You did? He nodded toward the counter. 2 phones lay there, both turned off. No office, no emails, no interruptions. Her stomach fluttered. And what exactly is your plan? His voice dropped slightly. To spend the next 48 hours proving to you that loving me was the right decision. Heat rushed to her cheeks. And how do you plan to do that? He leaned closer. Breakfast first, he murmured. Then we'll see. She laughed, swatting his chest lightly, but she didn't step away. He kissed her again, slower, deeper, more confident. This wasn't tension anymore. This was beginning. By noon, the house no longer felt empty. It felt intimate, alive. 2 people moving around each other with ease, brushing hands in the kitchen, stealing small kisses, laughing like teenagers who just discovered something reckless and beautiful. For the first time since she walked into their lives, Angela wasn't the nanny, and Jordan wasn't the widower holding himself together. They were just 2 people who chose each other, and they had an entire weekend alone. The house felt different, not because anything had changed physically, but because everything had shifted emotionally. Angela noticed it in the way Jordan looked at her when she walked into a room, in the way his hand casually found her waist when she passed by, in the way neither of them pulled away anymore. They stayed indoors all afternoon. No grand plans, no complicated gestures, just each other. They cooked together, or at least tried to. Jordan kept distracting her, brushing flour off her cheek, stealing pieces of vegetables before she could add them to the pan. Mr. Hayes, she scolded lightly, swatting his hand. Yes, Miss Angela, he replied innocently. You are not helping. I am supervising. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. At one point, he came up behind her while she stirred the pot, his hands settling lightly at her hips. Careful, she murmured. With what? He whispered near her ear. With distracting the cook. His laugh vibrated against her back. The playfulness was easy, natural, like they had skipped the awkward phase and stepped straight into comfort. Later, they moved to the living room. He stretched out on one side of the couch. She tucked her legs under herself on the other. It lasted exactly 10 minutes before he looked at her and said, Why are you so far away? I'm not far. You're across a continent. She laughed, but moved closer anyway. His arms slid around her shoulders almost instinctively. She rested against him. Simple, right, peaceful. The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet teasing, shared stories, soft touches that no longer needed permission. And every now and then he would look at her like he still couldn't believe she had chosen him. Sunday, the first official date. He insisted. No cooking, no couch clothes. We are doing this properly. So Sunday morning, he opened her door with a knock and a grin. Miss Angela, he said formally, offering his hand. May I take you out? She took his hand dramatically. You may, Mr. Hayes. He took her to lunch first, somewhere quiet and elegant, not overly public, not flashy, just intimate enough that they could talk without distraction. He watched her more than he ate. Stop staring, she said softly. I can't, he replied. After lunch, they went to a movie, sitting close in the dim theater. His fingers found hers halfway through. She intertwined them without hesitation. Small gestures, big meaning. Early dinner followed. Lighter this time. Conversation flowed easily. Laughter came naturally. There was no pressure, no heaviness, just the quiet joy of two people enjoying something they had denied themselves for too long. On the way home, he stopped to grab snacks. "For later," he said. "For what later?" she teased. He gave her a look. "You know exactly what later." Back home, shoes off, lights dimmed, snacks spread across the coffee table, they curled up on the couch under the fluffy blanket. This time there was no pretending. She rested fully against him, his arm wrapped securely around her. They talked about everything. Eventually, the girls. "Do we tell them?" he asked softly. She thought about it carefully. "They're smart," she said. "They'll figure it out." He smiled knowingly. "They always do." "But," she continued, "maybe we wait a little, just until we're steadier. I don't want to confuse them." He nodded without hesitation. "Your wish is my command, my angel." She laughed, tilting her head up at him. "You must have been quite the heartbreaker in your day." He snorted softly. "Not really." "Oh, please." "I was quiet, very shy." She stared at him dramatically. "You? Shy?" "I swear." She didn't believe him for a second. He leaned down and kissed her before she could argue further. Slow, warm, familiar already. They stayed like that for a long time, talking, laughing, kissing in between conversations. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was building. Something steady. Later that night, she stretched and stood up. "Well," she said lightly, smoothing her clothes. "Good night, Mr. Hayes. Thank you for a very wonderful date." His eyebrows lifted. "Wow, you're just going to leave me here again?" She smirked. "Nope." She extended her hand toward him. "A gentleman walks a lady to her door." He stood immediately, taking her hand with exaggerated seriousness. "As you wish." They walked upstairs together. At her door, he stopped. The playful energy softened. He pulled her into his arms, tighter this time, like he wasn't used to having something he didn't want to lose. He kissed her slowly. Once, twice, then again, reluctantly pulling back. "Good night," she whispered. He rested his forehead against hers. "Good night, my angel." He let go, but not easily. And as she closed her door, both of them smiled like teenagers who had just discovered something new and dangerous and beautiful. Down the hallway, in the empty bedroom, very observant little detectives would be returning soon. And they were going to notice everything. They had 7 more days. 7 quiet, uninterrupted days before the twins returned. And somehow, that knowledge made everything sweeter. Monday. He knocked. Soft, gentle, intentional. Angela opened her door in her robe, hair loose around her shoulders. Jordan stood there already dressed for work, tie straight, jacket fitted, but his expression was anything but formal. "Good morning," he said. She smiled sleepily. "Good morning." He stepped forward, cupped her face carefully, and kissed her. Not rushed, not distracted, just a slow, grounding kiss that said, "I choose you again today." "I'll see you tonight," he murmured against her lips. "Have a good day." He walked away, smiling, and she closed her door with her heart floating somewhere above the ceiling. Tuesday. She woke before him. The house was still quiet when she slipped into the kitchen. She prepared breakfast deliberately, coffee just the way he liked it, eggs soft, toast golden. When he walked in, surprised, she was placing the plates on the table. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I wanted to." He didn't say thank you. He walked up to her instead, wrapped his arms around her waist, and kissed her temple. They ate slowly, talking about nothing and everything. When he left, he kissed her longer than usual. Wednesday, she woke to the sound of his footsteps. He was already near the door. She hurried out of her room just in time. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" she asked. He turned, caught, smiling. "I didn't want to wake you. Too late." He came back up the stairs just to kiss her. Worth it. Thursday morning. They ate breakfast together. No rush, no distance. He didn't leave for work until 10, and even then he lingered. "I could just not go," he murmured. "You're ridiculous." He grinned. "I am deeply in love. It makes a man irrational." She shook her head, but she was glowing. The days blended into each other in the most beautiful way. Some afternoons he came home unexpectedly. "I had a meeting nearby," he'd claim. She didn't call out the obvious lie. They would eat lunch at the kitchen island, knees brushing. Other days, she met him at a restaurant. He loved walking in with her beside him, loved introducing her casually as Angela without explanation. Evenings were always theirs. Dinner together, dishes together, couch, blanket. Her curled into him like she had always belonged there. More kissing, more lingering touches, more comfort. And every single night, he walked her to her door. Every single night, he kissed her goodnight, but never pushed further. Never crossed the line she hadn't invited him past. Thursday night. They were in their usual position. Her tucked into his side, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns on her arm. The house was quiet, safe. He tilted his head slightly. "My angel," she hummed softly. "When are you finally going to enter my room?" Her breath caught. She looked away instantly, cheeks warming. "I've been in your room before," she said softly. "When you were sick, who do you think took care of you?" He smiled faintly. "You know what I mean." He gently took her hand and turned her face toward him. There was no pressure in his eyes, only longing. She hesitated. I don't know," she admitted. His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Tell me what's holding you back." Her voice grew quiet. "Sometimes I feel like I'm helping you cheat on your wife." The words hurt him, but he let her continue. "Her pictures are still on the walls," she whispered. "I'm sure she chose everything in that room. The furniture, the sheets, the bed." Her throat tightened. "I can't sleep with you there. That feels disrespectful." Silence. Heavy, honest. Jordan swallowed hard. He reached up and gently rubbed her cheek. "You see," he said softly, "this is why I fall in love with you all over again every single day." Her eyes flickered up. "Every time I think I couldn't possibly love you more, you prove me wrong." His forehead rested against hers. "No normal person would think like that," he continued. "Most people would just move forward." She gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe I'm not normal." He shook his head. "You're extraordinary." He pulled back slightly, serious now. "You're not replacing her," he said carefully. "And you're not cheating with me. My wife is gone. I loved her. I will always respect her, but she would never want me trapped in grief forever." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "And you deserve a space that feels like yours, not borrowed." She looked at him carefully. "I don't want to erase her," she whispered. "You won't," he said immediately. "Her memory stays, but our life moves forward." He kissed her gently. "Don't worry, my angel," he murmured against her lips. "I'll fix your concerns." She searched his eyes. "You promise?" "I promise." And that night, when he walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight, there was something new in his expression. Determination. He wasn't rushing her, but he was going to build something that felt right for both of them. Not inherited, not haunted. The next chapter of his life wouldn't be written in the shadows of the last. It would be written with her. Friday morning, Angela woke to unusual silence. No shower running, no phone calls, no distant footsteps heading out the door. She stepped into the hallway and froze. Jordan was dragging a suitcase across the corridor. "Mr. Hayes?" He looked up, slightly out of breath, wearing a t-shirt instead of his usual work shirt. "I'm not going to work today." Her eyebrows lifted. "You're sick again?" He shook his head. "No, I'm relocating." He pushed open the door to the guest bedroom. Inside, his clothes already lay folded across the bed. She stared. "You're serious." He leaned against the doorframe, studying her reaction. "The master bedroom is being redesigned." Her heartbeat skipped. "For you," he added softly. The words landed heavier than any confession. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I did," he replied. "You were right. That room still belonged to a life that ended. I don't want you feeling like a visitor in my past." He smiled gently. "I want a future with you that feels like ours." She didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. Then he grinned suddenly. "Though honestly, moving is exhausting." He dragged another bag inside. After a moment, he added casually, "I could just move into your room instead." She laughed immediately. "If you come in, I'll move out." He placed a hand dramatically over his heart. Cruel woman. They spent the entire day reorganizing. Boxes opened, closets rearranged, shelves cleared. Sometimes they worked. Most times they distracted each other. She tried folding shirts. He kept unfolding them. He tried organizing drawers. She kept correcting him. By afternoon, they were laughing more than working. It felt less like moving furniture, more like building a shared life piece by piece. Evening came with tired limbs and satisfied silence. They ate something simple, sitting close on the couch. Then Angela suddenly straightened. "Oh, I forgot. You don't have bed sheets in there." He tilted his head. "That sounds like a problem." She stood. "Wait, I'll get some." As she turned, he gently caught her wrist. "Can you help me put them on?" The tone was softer now, quieter. She hesitated, then nodded. Inside the guest room, the air felt strangely different. Smaller space, closer walls. He held one side of the sheet while she fixed the other. Their hands brushed. Neither moved away. "You're terrible at this," she murmured. "You're distracting me." She tugged the fabric tighter. "You're doing it on purpose." "Probably." She tried to reach across the bed. He pulled the sheet too soon and she stumbled forward, straight into him. They both stilled. The playful energy shifted. His hand settled gently at her waist, not trapping, not insisting, just there. Her breathing changed first. "Jordan." His voice lowered. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Her fingers curled into his shirt instead. That was the answer. The first kiss wasn't urgent. It was careful, like both were memorizing something they never wanted to forget. 3 years of loneliness met years of quiet endurance. No rush, no fear, just warmth unfolding slowly between them. He rested his forehead against hers. "I hope I'm not rushing you," he whispered. "I just haven't felt alive in 3 years. Now it's like my whole body is trying to catch up." She gave a small, breathless laugh. "Well, honestly, me too." Her cheeks warmed. "I never had time to think about dating." His thumb brushed her cheek. "Then we learn together." That night, they didn't chase passion. They discovered it. Gentle touches, soft laughter in between nerves, pauses just to look at each other and smile. Every moment careful, every movement chosen. It wasn't about hunger alone, it was about trust. About finally allowing closeness after living in restraint for far too long. The world outside the door faded completely, and for the first time, the house didn't feel like a place full of memories. It felt like the beginning of new ones. Much later, resting beside him, Angela traced circles lightly on his arm. He kissed her hair. "Stay," he murmured. She did, and the night held them, not as widower and nanny, but as two people who finally stopped holding back. Angela woke slowly, not startled, not confused, warm. For a few seconds, she didn't open her eyes. She simply existed, wrapped in steady breathing, strong arms, and sunlight filtering gently through unfamiliar curtains. Then memory returned. Friday night. His hands, his voice, the way he had looked at her, not hungry, not reckless, but grateful. Her heart swelled. She shifted slightly. Jordan stirred behind her almost immediately. His arm tightened instinctively around her waist. "Don't move," he murmured sleepily. She smiled. "Good morning." He pressed his face into her shoulder for a moment before lifting his head. When their eyes met, something vulnerable passed between them. He searched her face carefully. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. The question wasn't casual. It carried weight. She understood. He wasn't asking about sleep. He was asking about everything. She turned fully toward him. "I'm okay." His shoulders relaxed slightly. "I didn't cross any line?" He pressed gently. She cupped his face. "You stopped every time I needed you to," she said. "You listen well." His breath left him slowly. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I never want you to feel rushed, not by me." She smiled. "I didn't." Silence settled between them, but not awkward, just honest. He brushed her hair back from her face. "I feel—" He paused, searching for the word. "Peaceful." She laughed softly. "You look peaceful." He did. Not the controlled, polished businessman, not the grieving widower, just a man who had finally allowed himself to feel again. He kissed her gently. No urgency, just closeness. And for a while they stayed like that, talking quietly, fingers intertwined under the blanket. Eventually she sat up, wrapping the sheet around herself. He watched her shamelessly. "Careful," she warned. "I'm appreciating." She shook her head, smiling. "Appreciate quietly." Impossible. They spent the morning slowly. No rushing out of bed, no phones, no interruptions. He made coffee. She leaned against the counter, watching him move around the kitchen in a way that now felt familiar in a new way. Everything felt different, but not strange. Just deeper. They talked about small things first. The bedroom redesign, paint colors, furniture. "Nothing heavy," he promised. "We keep it warm, comfortable." "Ours," she corrected gently. He smiled at that. "Ours." By afternoon, the reality settled in. Tomorrow, the girls would be back. Their little world of quiet intimacy would shift again. They sat on the couch in their usual spot, her curled into him. "Are you nervous?" he asked. "A little," she admitted. "About them?" She nodded. "They adore you," he said. "I know. That's why it matters." He kissed the top of her head. "We won't overwhelm them. We don't change everything overnight." She tilted her head up at him. "You're good at this." "At what?" "Being patient." He smiled faintly. "I've had practice." They fell into thoughtful silence. After a moment, he spoke again. Softer this time. "Last night meant more to me than you know." She looked at him. "I know," she said gently. He swallowed. "I was afraid I wouldn't remember how to feel, how to connect." Her hand rested over his heart. "You are a pro." He closed his eyes briefly at her touch. "And you?" he asked carefully. "Any regrets?" She considered the question honestly, then shook her head. "No." His exhale was almost shaky. "Good." As evening approached, they cooked together again. Slower this time, quieter. There was no frantic energy, just comfort. After dinner, they cuddled like they had every night that week, but now there was a deeper ease between them. Not anticipation, not tension, just belonging. When he walked her to her door that night, he didn't hesitate. He kissed her slowly, then rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we go back to being responsible adults." She laughed lightly. "Tonight we still are." "Barely." She smiled. "Good night." "Good night, my angel." He let her go, but without the earlier uncertainty. Now there was certainty. Tomorrow the house would be louder, brighter, full again. But something had changed permanently. They weren't almost anymore. They were us. The house had been too quiet for a week. Not empty, just suspended.
like it had been holding its breath. Angela only realized it when the front door burst open. "We're home!" The sound hit the walls, the staircase, the kitchen, and something inside her chest loosened instantly. Jordan, standing beside her in the hallway, exhaled softly. He didn't even realize he'd been tense. 2 sets of footsteps thundered inside, bags dropped, shoes kicked off mid-movement, and then they collided into him. "Daddy!" He staggered back half a step as they hugged him at the same time. And then they noticed her. They didn't move away from him, but they looked at her differently. Not shy, not distant, studying, curious. Angela felt it immediately. Children noticed changes adults thought they hid well. Ariel tilted her head. "Did you miss us?" Angela smiled gently. "Very much." Jordan glanced at her, too quickly. Avery's eyes narrowed slightly. That tiny look did not escape her. Later that evening, they had dinner together. Loud, chaotic, overlapping conversations. But something subtle had changed. Jordan didn't refill Angela's glass without asking anymore. He didn't rest his hand behind her chair. He didn't look at her too long. And somehow, that made it more obvious. The girls exchanged small looks across the table. They knew something had happened. They just didn't know what. By night, the house settled. Doors closed, water pipes hummed softly through the walls. Angela had just changed into sleep clothes when a quiet knock. She opened the door a crack. Jordan stood there, soft eyes, familiar warmth, a habit they'd built over the past week. "Goodnight kiss," he whispered. She smiled. He stepped inside just for a second, just one. He cupped her cheek gently and kissed her. Slow, warm, lingering. A week apart from that simple moment suddenly felt impossible. Then, footsteps in the hallway. Both froze. Jordan's eyes widened. "Angela!" came a tiny voice outside. Angela shoved him backward. He looked around, nowhere to go, and immediately dropped to the far side of her bed just as the door opened. The girls walked in. Angela prayed her heartbeat wasn't audible. "Can't sleep?" she asked calmly, sitting on the edge of the mattress. Below her, Jordan's hand found her ankle. She jerked. "You okay?" the younger one asked. "Yes," Angela said quickly. Under the bedspread, his fingers lightly traced the bottom of her foot. She pressed her lips together. He did it again. She shot a glare downward they couldn't see. The older one sat beside her. "Did you and Dad have fun while we were gone?" Angela swallowed. "Of course, but we mostly worked." A slow circle brushed across her arch. Her shoulders stiffened. Jordan was absolutely enjoying this. She subtly pushed her heel backward in warning. He gently tickled instead. Her breath hitched. "Angela?" She coughed lightly. "Yes?" The younger one narrowed her eyes. "Why are you sitting so straight?" "Posture is important," she said immediately. Under the blanket, Jordan had to cover his mouth to stop laughing silently. They talked for a few minutes more before the girls finally left. The door closed. Silence. Angela didn't move. "You can come out," she whispered. Jordan emerged from the other side of the bed, grinning like a teenager. "You were going to get us caught." "You were adorable," he said softly. She tried to look annoyed. Failed. The week that followed. The house developed a new rhythm. Morning goodbyes became formal in front of the girls, but when he passed her in the kitchen, his fingers brushed hers for half a second. She felt it for minutes. She packed his lunch. He pretended not to notice in front of them, texted her a thank you 5 minutes after leaving. They reached for the same cup in the cabinet. Hands lingered too long. The girls noticed. Said nothing. Family movie night. The girls sat between them. Halfway through the film, one conveniently fell asleep and leaned away. They suddenly sat shoulder to shoulder. Neither moved. He came home early. The girls were busy upstairs. They stood in the kitchen saying nothing. Just looking at each other. Comfortable. Different. Real. By weekend, Ariel whispered to Avery,
I think they're dating but don't know we know. The older nodded seriously. Don't tell them yet. And for the first time, the house didn't feel like it belonged to the past anymore. It felt like it was learning a new future. The auditorium was louder than Angela expected. Children running between rows, parents greeting each other, teachers directing traffic near the stage. Jordan stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets. "Are you sure you're okay being here?" he asked quietly. She nodded. The invitation had come 3 days ago, Family Appreciation Day. The girls had been strangely casual about it. "Dad, you're coming, right?" And Angela, too. They had said it like it was obvious. Angela hadn't slept well since. The girls spotted them near the entrance. They waved immediately. Angela noticed something in their smiles. Relief. Jordan squeezed her hand briefly before letting go. In public, they kept distance, but the connection remained. The program began. Children went up one by one to speak about the people who raised them. Some talked about mothers, some about grandparents, some about both parents. Then the older twin's name was called. She walked up confidently at first. Angela smiled encouragingly, but halfway to the microphone, something shifted. 2 girls in the second row whispered, not quietly enough. "She doesn't even have a mom." Another snickered. "Yeah, she just has her dad." Angela felt the air change. The older twin heard it. Angela saw it in the way her shoulders tightened. Jordan heard it too. His jaw set immediately. The girl reached the microphone. She hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the crowd. Searching. They landed on her father, then on Angela. And for a split second, Angela saw the fear. "My family," the girl began, but her voice wavered. A soft laugh sounded from somewhere in the audience. The younger twin stood abruptly from her seat. "She does too have someone," she blurted out. The room quieted. Teachers shifted uncomfortably. Jordan started to rise, but Angela moved first. She didn't think. She just walked. Steady steps down the aisle, no hesitation. She stopped at the base of the stage, looked up at the older twin, and held out her hand. The girl stared at it. Angela's voice was calm. "May I?" Silence stretched. Then the girl nodded. Angela stepped onto the stage. The auditorium buzzed softly. She knelt slightly so she was at eye level. "You are never without love," Angela said gently, loud enough for the microphone to catch. The older twin's chin trembled. Angela turned slightly toward the crowd. "She has a mother," she continued softly, "a wonderful one." The room went completely still. "She may not be here physically," Angela said carefully, respectfully, "but she is part of everything these girls are." Jordan swallowed hard. Angela took the girl's hand. "And she also has a father who loves her more fiercely than anything in this world." Jordan's eyes shone. "And," Angela added after a small pause, voice steady, "she has me." A murmur moved through the crowd. Angela didn't flinch. "I am not here to replace anyone," she said clearly, "but I will always stand beside her. Always." The younger twin was crying openly now. The older one finally leaned into Angela's side, just slightly, but it was everything. Jordan stepped forward then, not to take over, but to stand with them. One hand rested on each daughter's shoulder. The 4 of them stood together. Not perfect, not traditional, but whole. The rest of the event passed in a blur. Some parents offered kind looks, some awkward smiles, but none of it mattered. In the car afterward, the girls were quiet, until Ariel finally whispered from the back seat, "Are you going to leave too?" The question hit like a crack in glass. Angela turned around slowly. "No," she said immediately. Jordan glanced at her, not surprised, just listening. Angela reached back and held her hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Avery wiped her face quickly. "You promise?" Angela didn't hesitate. "I promise." Jordan reached across the console and covered Angela's hand with his. This time, neither of them pulled away. That night, after the girls were asleep, the house felt different. He found her in the kitchen. She stood by the sink, quiet. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "Yes," she replied. "I did." He stepped closer. "You honored their mother," he said. She looked at him carefully. "I would never take her place." He shook his head. "You didn't." His voice broke slightly. "You stood by them." Silence filled the space between them. Heavy, beautiful. He brushed a tear from her cheek. "They chose you today," he whispered. She shook her head gently. "No, I chose them." And that was the moment the story changed. Not lovers hiding in hallways, not secret kisses behind doors, but a woman stepping forward when it mattered, and a man realizing he wasn't just falling in love. He was watching his family grow. The weeks after the school event settled into something warm and secret. Mornings were careful. Afternoons were stolen. When the girls were at school, the house felt like it belonged only to them. Angela would be in the kitchen, sunlight pouring across the counters. Jordan would come home for lunch. Sometimes they actually ate. Most times, they didn't. Soft laughter against the fridge, hands sliding around waists, kisses that started playful and ended breathless. At night, once the girls were asleep, he would knock softly on her door, and she would open it without asking who it was. It felt young, reckless, alive. That evening, the house smelled of garlic and herbs. Angela stood at the stove, stirring a pot slowly. Upstairs, cartoons echoed faintly through the hall. Jordan passed the staircase. He listened. Still laughter, still dialogue from the television. Safe. He walked into the kitchen quietly. Angela didn't notice him at first. He slid his arms around her waist from behind. She gasped softly, then relaxed instantly. "You're impossible," she murmured. "I know," he whispered against her hair. He kissed just below her ear, slow, deliberate. She tilted her head without thinking. His lips traced down her neck, her grip on the wooden spoon loosened. "Jordan," she breathed. He smiled against her skin. Another kiss, slower this time. Her knees weakened slightly, and then a sharp, exaggerated cough. Right behind them. Both of them jumped like they'd been struck by lightning. Angela dropped the spoon. It clattered loudly against the tile. She nearly knocked the pot sideways. Jordan stepped back so fast he hit the counter behind him. They turned. The girls stood in the doorway, arms crossed, identical expressions. Avery raised one eyebrow. "Well," she said calmly. Ariel nodded seriously. "So, it's official." Angela's face burned. Jordan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "This isn't—" "Oh, please," the older twin interrupted. "You were kissing her neck." Angela covered her face briefly. Jordan cleared his throat. "We thought you were upstairs." "We were," the younger one said. "We came down for juice." "And trauma," Avery added dryly. Angela blinked. "Trauma?" Ariel burst into giggles. The tension cracked. Jordan ran a hand through his hair. "All right," he said carefully. "We owe you an explanation." The girls exchanged looks. "We know," they said together. Silence. Angela looked confused. "You know?" The older one shrugged. "You've been acting weird for weeks." "You sit closer now," Ariel added, "and Dad smiles like an idiot." Jordan looked personally attacked. "I do not." "You do," they insisted. Angela slowly lowered her hands from her face. "So you're not upset?" The girls looked at each other again. Then Ariel stepped forward. "Are you happy?" Angela swallowed. "Yes." Avery looked at her father. "Are you?" Jordan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Another pause. Ariel nodded decisively. "Okay then." "That's it?" Jordan asked cautiously. Avery uncrossed her arms. "We were just waiting for you to admit it." Angela stared at them. "You mean—" "You're terrible at sneaking," the older said. Ariel walked into the kitchen and grabbed a glass. But, she added, turning back with a small smile, we like her. Angela's eyes filled unexpectedly. Jordan saw it. He stepped closer, slower this time, resting his hand gently at her back, not hiding, not pretending. Avery watched carefully. You're not replacing Mom, she said quietly. The kitchen stilled. Angela's heart squeezed. I would never, she said softly. The girl nodded. We know. It wasn't a challenge, it was reassurance. Then the younger one grinned mischievously. But can you at least wait until we're actually asleep? Angela laughed in disbelief. Jordan covered his face with his hand. We'll try. The older one pointed toward the stove. Your food is burning, by the way. Angela gasped and turned quickly. Jordan stepped back, still stunned. The girls walked out of the kitchen whispering. I told you they were obvious. I know. When they were gone, Angela leaned back against the counter. Jordan stepped close again, slower, softer. Well, he murmured. She looked up at him. We're terrible criminals. He smiled. No more hiding. This time when he kissed her, he didn't check the stairs first. And upstairs, two girls smiled quietly to themselves, because the house didn't feel like it was missing anything anymore. It felt full. Saturday afternoons at the mall had slowly become tradition. The twins walked ahead, hands linked, arguing over whether they wanted frozen yogurt or milkshakes while Angela followed with a fond smile. Jordan had run back into a nearby electronics store to take an urgent call, promising he'd be right out. 5 minutes, he had said. It had already been 10. Miss Angela, if Daddy takes longer, can we get both? Amara asked hopefully. Nice try, Angela laughed. You said that last week. But last week was different, Alana insisted. Last week we didn't really mean it. Angela shook her head, amused, when a familiar voice cut through the noise of the mall. Well, this is an interesting picture. Angela stiffened before she even turned around. Claire, perfectly dressed as always, heels clicking lightly on the tiles, a shopping bag hanging from her arm. Her eyes swept over the girls and then settled on Angela, not curious, not friendly, measuring. The twins instantly moved closer to Angela. Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I keep seeing you everywhere, she said lightly. School, the house, now the mall. We were just waiting for Dad, Ariel answered politely. Claire tilted her head. Of course you were. Her gaze returned to Angela. You're very involved, she said. One would almost think you're their mother. Angela said nothing. Claire took a step closer, lowering her voice just enough. And Jordan, your husband. A pause, then the smile sharpened. But let's not forget reality. She adjusted the strap of her bag. You're just the nanny. Know your place. For a second, the sounds of the mall disappeared. Angela felt heat rise to her face, but she swallowed every word sitting at the back of her throat. The twins held her hands tighter. Claire straightened, her tone suddenly sweet again. Anyway, tell Jordan I said hi. I'll see him Monday. She walked away as if nothing had happened. Angela forced a breath. Angela? Avery whispered. I'm okay, she said quickly, smiling. Too quickly. What were we saying about milkshakes? They didn't answer. The girls were unusually quiet the rest of the afternoon. Even after Jordan returned, even after the milkshakes, even during the drive home. Angela tried. She laughed, she asked questions, she played along, but something had shifted, a softness in her voice that hadn't been there before. Jordan noticed. He didn't ask in front of her. That night after dinner, he offered to put the girls to sleep. Angela went downstairs. He crouched beside the twins' bed. All right, he said gently. What happened today? The girls exchanged a look. Avery spoke first. That office lady. Jordan's expression changed instantly. Claire? Ariel nodded. She was mean to Miss Angela. Jordan's jaw tightened. What did she say? The twins hesitated. then told him everything, every word. The silence that followed was heavy. Jordan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, his voice was calm, but firm. "Thank you for telling me." "Daddy," Avery whispered. Miss Angela tried to smile, but it was a fake smile. His heart clenched. He kissed both their foreheads. "I'll handle it," he said quietly, a solemn promise. The next morning felt normal, too normal. Angela packed lunchboxes, braided hair, and reminded the twins about homework like she always did. She laughed at breakfast, asked Jordan about his schedule, and avoided his eyes just enough that only he noticed. He watched her the entire time. She never mentioned the mall, not once, but the softness in her voice was gone, and Jordan knew exactly why. That evening, after dinner, he was helping the twins with a puzzle in the living room while Angela folded laundry upstairs. Avery suddenly placed the last piece wrong. Jordan looked at it. She never made careless mistakes. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently. The twins exchanged a look, the serious one. Alana spoke first. "Daddy, are you going to marry Miss Angela?" The question landed heavier than any boardroom negotiation. Jordan blinked. "That's a very big question." Avery hugged a pillow. "Because people won't stop being mean to her." His chest tightened. Ariel continued, determined. "If she was officially our mum, no one would talk to her like that." Silence filled the room. Jordan leaned back, looking at them. Really looking. Not children asking out of curiosity, children protecting someone they loved. "Would that make you happy?" he asked quietly. Both nodded instantly. "Yes." "And you wouldn't feel like I'm replacing Mommy?" The twins shook their heads. Ariel climbed onto his lap. "You're not replacing Mommy. You're fixing our family." The words broke something open inside him. He had spent years afraid of moving forward, afraid of dishonoring the past. But the future was sitting right in front of him. He smiled slowly. "Then I need your help." Their eyes widened. Avery gasped. "A proposal?" Jordan chuckled softly. "Yes, a very important one." The girls immediately scooted closer, excitement bursting through them. Okay, Alana whispered loudly. "It has to be special. With candles," Avery added. "And flowers. And cake," Jordan laughed for the first time that day. A real laugh. "I think I know exactly what to do." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "But it has to be a secret. Not even a hint to Angela." The twins covered their mouths dramatically. "We promise." They leaned in as he whispered the plan. Their faces lit up brighter with every word. By the end, they were vibrating with excitement. "Daddy," Veri whispered, "this is going to make her cry." Jordan smiled softly toward the staircase, toward where Angela was humming faintly while folding clothes. "I hope so," he said quietly. Angela noticed something strange the moment she woke up. The house was quiet. Not normal quiet. Suspicious quiet. No tiny footsteps, no cartoons, no Jordan making coffee too strong and pretending it wasn't. She walked downstairs. No one. On the dining table sat a small, folded card, her name written in careful, uneven handwriting. She opened it. "Miss Angela, please come to the backyard. We need you." Her heart skipped. "We?" she murmured. She stepped outside and froze. The backyard had been transformed. Soft lights hung along the fence, glowing gently in the late afternoon sun. Paper flowers, clearly handmade, were taped everywhere, some crooked, some falling slightly to the side. In the center stood the twins, dressed in matching dresses, holding a small box together. Behind them stood Jordan, not in a suit, not in work clothes, just a simple shirt, nervous in a way she had never seen before. Angela's breath caught. "What is this?" The twins ran to her, grabbing her hands and pulling her forward. "Stand here," Avery insisted. She obeyed, still confused, her heart pounding harder with every second. Jordan didn't speak. He simply watched her, like she was the only thing that existed. The girls took a deep, synchronized breath, then knelt, both of them. Angela gasped. "Girls, what are you—" They opened the box. Inside was a ring. Ariel spoke first, voice shaking with excitement. "You take care of us when we're sad," Avery continued, eyes shining. "You make Daddy laugh again." Ariel squeezed her hand. "You help with homework," Avery nodded. "And you always make our hair beautifully." Their voices softened together. "So," they looked up at her with hopeful eyes. "Will you marry us?" Angela's vision blurred instantly. Her hands flew to her mouth as tears spilled before she could stop them. She looked at Jordan, helpless, overwhelmed. He finally stepped forward, his own eyes shining. "I was going to ask," he said softly, "but they insisted it had to be from all of us." He took the ring from the box, his voice steadied, deep and certain. "I loved once in my life, and I thought that chapter closed forever." He swallowed. "Then you walked into our world and quietly held us together." He took her trembling hand. "You didn't replace anything. You gave us a future." He knelt beside his daughters. "Angela, will you marry us?" She was crying openly now, shaking her head as if she still couldn't believe it. "Yes," she whispered. The twins blinked. "What?" She laughed through tears. "Yes, yes, I will." They screamed and hugged her at the same time, nearly knocking her over as Jordan slid the ring onto her finger. She looked at it, then at them, then at him. And for the first time, it didn't feel like she had found a job. It felt like she had found a home. Jordan pulled them all into his arms, a real family, not formed by blood, but chosen. A year later, the mornings were louder now. Not chaotic, just full. Angela stood in the hallway tying Avery's shoelaces while Ariel searched frantically for a permission slip that had absolutely been in her backpack the night before. "Check the front pocket," Angela called gently. "I did." Second front pocket. A pause. "Oh." Jordan leaned against the staircase watching them, coffee in hand, wearing that same quiet smile he'd had all year. The house looked different now. Family photos lined the wall, wedding pictures among them, the girls between them in white dresses, grinning wider than anyone. The master bedroom fully redone, warm tones, soft light. No ghosts on the walls, just them. "Shoes on, hair brushed, lunch packed," Angela announced. "We are leaving in exactly 60 seconds. "You sound like Dad," Ariel muttered. "I learned from the best," Angela replied. Jordan feigned offense. "Excuse me, I am very gentle." All three girls looked at him in disbelief. He sighed. "Fine. Efficient." The school drop-off lane was crowded as always. Angela parked and turned in her seat. "Avery, no more getting into fights. Ariel, watch her please." "Yes, Mum," they chorused automatically. The words settled differently now. Not new, not hesitant. Natural. Angela blinked. They leaned forward to kiss her cheeks. "Bye, Mum." "Bye." Jordan reached from the passenger seat and squeezed her knee softly as the girls ran toward the building. She watched them until they disappeared inside. Still not used to how easily they said it. Still not used to how right it felt. On the drive home, the car was quieter. Peaceful. Jordan glanced sideways at her. "You're thinking." She smiled faintly. "They didn't even hesitate." "They haven't for months." She looked down at her hands resting over her stomach absent-mindedly. Jordan noticed that too. "You're thinking about something else," he said gently. She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "My cycle's late." The words hung between them. Jordan didn't react immediately, didn't panic, didn't celebrate. He just absorbed it. "How late?" he asked softly. "A week?" He nodded once. Traffic moved slowly around them. She stared out the window. I don't know how I feel yet, she admitted. He reached over and laced his fingers with hers. We don't have to decide how we feel today. She looked at him, searching. You're not worried? He smiled softly. Angela, a year ago I was terrified to even love again. He lifted her hand to his lips. Now we have a family that loves each other. His voice warmed. If life gives us more, we'll love that too. Her eyes shimmered slightly. And if it's nothing? She asked quietly. Then we still go home to 2 daughters and a house that's too loud. She laughed softly. 2 daughters. He always said it that way. Never corrected anyone who called her their mother. Never hesitated. She leaned back in her seat, finally breathing easier. You'd look cute with a baby strapped to your chest, she teased. I would look dignified. You would look sleep-deprived, also accurate. They pulled into the driveway. Jordan turned off the engine but didn't get out. He studied her for a moment, the woman who had once stood uncertainly in that same kitchen as just the nanny. You know, he said quietly, Claire transferred offices last spring. Angela raised a brow. Really? Mm-hmm. She smiled faintly. You didn't have to do that. I didn't. He leaned closer, brushing a gentle kiss against her forehead. But no one disrespects my wife. The words still made her heart flip. Wife, mum, home. She rested her head briefly against his shoulder. Whatever the test in the bathroom drawer would say later, whatever the future held, she wasn't afraid of it anymore. Because a year ago, 3 people had asked her one question, and she had said yes. And every day since, they kept choosing each other.